It's what you do to me. Hey. Welcome, everybody. It is, March 10th, 2024. You are on the line watching the Sunday show, the foremost show about call-in show, and then he just trailed off, about stuff and things and all that kind of stuff. But we like to have conversations about theism, religion, spirituality. If you are a theist or you have a spiritual belief that you would like to call and tell us why you believe that, we would love to hear it. And I would love my name tag to read Jimmy Snow, because Jimmy seems like too few letters. I don't know why that bothers me. Also, it looks off center.
Make mine say Eric Snow while you're at it. Might as well.
That would be weird. They don't know yet. Shh, we haven't announced that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did the invites not go out yet?
It didn't. Actually, let's make it Dr. Jimmy Snow, just to fuck. No, don't really do that. Welcome, everybody. Yes, this is the Sunday show. I hope I called it the Sunday show earlier, because after the Sunday show is done, we're going to hard stop at 5, and right at 5, when the Sunday show ends, I'm going to start another show called The Sometime Show over on my channel. We do have auto redirect on, so you'll be able to come with. And we're going to be talking about news and politics over there and the events of the day, of the week over there. It's going to be myself and Dominic Syracuse. But joining me here today, I literally introduced my next show's guest before I remembered to introduce today's guest. Here is Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. Eric, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. So your channel is a solo channel, right? Skeptics and Scoundrels is you?
Yeah. Just a hobby project of mine. Yeah, just the whole thing.
But Skeptics and Scoundrels sounds like so many people are involved. I just want to point that out.
Well, it's all about the optics. You got to make yourself look bigger than you really are, and then people take you seriously. Yeah.
I'm going to go check out this show. It sounds like there's going to be dozens of hosts.
The way I named my channel, I wanted people to not know who I'm talking about. Am I talking about the atheist side, or am I talking? Is it atheists and atheists, like Skeptics and Scoundrels, or is it atheists and others? Like, I wanted that to be ambiguous, so that and people would question.
Keep them guessing.
Who are the scoundrels? Who are you insulting with that name? Are you self-deprecating? Are you calling the scoundrels the apologists? Yeah, I'm just going to keep it nice and mysterious.
Is it Skeptics versus Scoundrels is what you're sort of getting at? Or is it Skeptics and which one is it? But you're saying you'll never tell is basically what this comes down to. All right.
Never.
Well,
there might be 0 scoundrels. Might be an empty set.
We'll just all go F ourselves, I guess. Also, it is March, which means Matt and I are competing right now. We both have our own merch at linemerch.com. Oh, what is that? I don't think this is meant to happen. Uh-oh.
I thought it was just like a sudden disco here.
Yeah, we got to go back to the. It's all good. Things happen. I'm not producing today because I have to do the and so we're making a Morgan who doesn't have to do this very often. This show very often. We're making him do it. And because I have to be able to make the seamless transition. Anyway, I think Morgan's got it figured out. We get the name tags back up so the phone number can get back up on the screen though. That's not right at all. Yeah, there's all kinds of fun stuff going on. Yeah, there we go. 720-619-2288. There's also a web link in the description. But anyway, it is the month of March, which means Matt and I are going head to head right now. We are fighting with our own merch over at linemerch.com. I think there'll be a link in the description specifically to the birthday merch. I am currently beating him. Let's see, what does this add up to? 10, 11,
Crazy.
12, 13, 14, 16 people have bought my birthday merch, the Unafraid to Disappoint Daddy, magical or otherwise merch. And his end boss of atheism merch is at 12. So currently beating him 16 to 12. Y'all go sort that out with your purchases if you like. Anyway, I don't know. You got anything you want to share before we just start jumping into calls?
Nah, man, let's do it.
I gotta silence my phone. I'm unprofessional. All right, let's get it going then. We're gonna start off with Richard in Arizona. Richard in Arizona, you're on the line with Jimmy and Eric.
Hey guys, good to be here.
Yeah.
Hi.
Us too. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a fan of your previous work, and I'm happy to call in and talk about what I believe.
Great. Tell us what you believe.
All right. I know that if I tell you 4 things and the 5th, that are true, that doesn't mean the 5th thing is true, but I want to just kind of lay out a few of my base beliefs so you can see where I'm coming from. Morally, I believe in individual freedom. As long as, you don't harm anyone, you can do pretty much whatever you want. I'm a skeptic. I have no belief in ghosts, psychics, or the supernatural. I accept this fact that the earth is round and old, climate change is real, evolution happened, we landed on the moon, Trump is a criminal, and sovereign citizens are deluded. The last belief is one that might be controversial, and that is that I believe the technological singularity is coming. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know. I mean, it seems you're talking about the day when humans are more machine than they are their original.
Or are you talking about
what I'm actually referring to?
Are you talking about when we create an AI so powerful that it can create even more powerful AIs, and then it's just a runaway process, and all of a sudden we've created some machine god that we have no understanding of?
Yeah. The argument is that technological progress in human history has been on an exponential growth curve, like 3 million years ago, stone tools, 1 million years ago, fire, so on and so forth, until we get to now, where, in 2022, there were 1.9 million peer-reviewed research papers, almost 4 million patents. We've got, ChatGPT and Claude and everything coming along, and, we're almost there, basically.
And you believe that AI is going to break free of our control and be able to work independent of our limitations?
Well, let me propose a scenario, because the thing about the singularity is that any model I do propose is not going to be right, because we can't really predict the future. Anything I propose is not going to be crazy enough. But let me propose a world that is
Let's do it quickly so we can get to the God stuff.
Yes, a world that's covered in nanomachines. They're all networked together with 15G or whatever, and they're all powered by a super intelligent AI. And it's my argument that in that situation, you basically have a being or group of beings that is everywhere, knows everything, and can do anything.
Okay. And when you say knows everything, you mean literally everything?
Pretty much. At least it would be total, on a planetary scale. Total informational awareness. It would have, it would literally know how many hairs are on your head.
Okay.
So it's
everything.
It's not really all knowing. It's more has the capability to figure out anything it wants. Is really what you're trying to say, right?
Well, it would be, omniscient,
like
at least
such an
from a
AI
human perspective, because it would be an expert in every field.
Yeah, but from his perspective, it wouldn't be all knowing, right? There'll be things it wouldn't know, and possibly things it could never know, right?
Well, no, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think that there's probably an upper limit on everything that there is to know, in terms of, scientific knowledge, we're a good chunk of the way there in terms of.
Even things within reason, like if we had a global AI that just took over everything, and it was like just this god mind that we can't possibly comprehend, right? It wouldn't know how many planets there are over in pick random galaxy in the sky. Like it wouldn't.
You don't even have to go that far. There are unknowable things, like things that do have the appearance of randomness, or something that's too massive to. So no matter how smart a machine you make, nobody's talked about one that could say, like, freeze any moment in time. Counting hairs on my head are impressive, but can it know how many neutrinos are passing through my cells at any specific instant in time? Obviously not.
It might be able to know that. We don't know. What I would say is it's certainly far more powerful than most of the gods we've proposed in history. It's more powerful than Jesus, that's for sure.
No, because they literally, you're talking about all powerful things. So not only would the Jesus God know where the exact count of neutrinos, which I think it's wild that you think it would just always at all times know the number of neutrinos. That's phenomenal. But anyway, or the location of electrons, which literally measuring it affects. But it wouldn't be more powerful because in the God Jesus all-powerful model for most Christians, not only does he know where all the neutrinos are, they're there because he put them there. So he's doing these trillions of calculations per second, per person, per molecule.
Well, when I say Jesus, I'm referring specifically to Jesus, and all he did was walk on water and create, turn water into wine and a couple of other parlor tricks, and there's also the other gods like the Greek gods like Aphrodite. All she can do is make people fall in love, basically, and there's plenty of Hindi gods that are existing today. They have a multi-god belief, and they're not all powerful.
I don't have any reason to accept that Jesus's powers stop where the Christian book, Jesus's powers stop where the Christian book illustrates his powers and don't go beyond what the Christians then additionally add to it in the same book or derive from the same book. But anyway, so what's your proposal of, because it says here that you are a theist. What is your proposal of a God you believe in?
I think that basically what humans have been yearning for is coming in the next few years, that the world will basically be like a heaven, no more hunger, no more children getting abused or any of that kind of stuff, and that's my belief. I think that's coming to pass.
Okay, so you believe a tech-based utopia is coming. Fine. Where is the God in the tech-based utopia that makes you a theist versus an atheist?
I already described it. It's, a being that meets the triomni attributes, even if it's only on a planetary scale.
So you're a theist in something that doesn't believe. You're a theist in something that doesn't exist yet, is what you're saying.
It doesn't exist yet. That's correct. But that's also, in my opinion, inevitable unless civilization collapses, any more than you can stop the wheel from being invented.
That does take away one of the characteristics of God, since his omnipresence includes present in all moments in time. But additionally, a quality of God, when we're talking about religion, this is one of those topics that frustrates me, because people are like, what if I just redefine what a God is? Then we'd have to agree that there is or will be a God. But there's no supernatural quality to this guy that you're giving to me, and the supernatural is an element. I mean, perhaps if he can actually locate all neutrinos, it would be a supernatural computer, but this is a natural entity that is the conclusion of, it's certainly not greater than humanity because it's a product of humanity.
I don't require a supernatural element. All I described was triomni.
Then you aren't presenting a God. And again, there were problems with your triomni.
Yeah, I disagree with the triomni God that you're presenting. As Jamie pointed out, this God is not omnipresent.
In any point in history, if a being came along that was literally able to materialize anything in front of you that you requested it to, any human would call that a God.
You're talking about a molecular synthesizer yet, which you believe in something that has not been demonstrated to be possible, but go off. Go ahead, Aaron.
Like I said, it's the singularity. Anything we predict is not crazy enough.
Yeah, do you watch Star Trek: The Next Generation at all, Richard? There's a whole episode on this premise. All right, I forgot what the episode's called, but basically, the Enterprise crew accidentally culturally contaminates a primitive species, and Picard, for most of the episode, is trying to convince them we are not gods, even though we can, as you said, literally materialize things out of thin air right in front of you. That doesn't make them gods. And that's actually the whole point of the show. And Picard almost sacrifices his life to prove that point to them because he finds it to be so important not to contaminate the species with a superstitious belief. And who also said it? Who said the quote that, you know, technology sufficient enough to a primitive is as the same as magic? He's not literally saying it's the same as magic. It's just from the primitive standpoint, it appears to be magic because there's no understanding there. But you're trying to propose that this.
I specifically wanted to bring up that quote that you just mentioned because I have also heard on the show before saying that in most situations when you use the word God, you can substitute it with the word magic. So I would like to say that sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from God.
Indistinguishable from magic, but not magic.
You're also completely omitting a huge part of it. It's indistinguishable from God or magic to the people who weren't present during its inception. So what you're describing would seem magical to maybe our present day understanding. Yes, it is part of the quote because he's literally talking about how people in the past would look at the present day technology when that quote was actually given and think they were interacting with magic. Contextually, it's not just part of the quote, it is the goddamn quote. Before you try and get fucking cheeky and correct fucking anything. It's not sufficiently advanced technology. Our technology today, a smartphone, if we took this into the past, would be indistinguishable from magic. But it's not to the people who are here present. And if the singularity is as soon as you seem to think it is, it won't even be us who that will be indistinguishable from magic for, because apparently we're going to be present for it. But mind you, the actual point I was going to bring it back to is you have your three omnis, and I went ahead and pulled them up because I was pretty sure you were wrong on all three, but I didn't want to be shitty about it. So what does omniscience mean?
To know everything. And, you know, yes, you can bring it to a galactic scale and point to certain things, but I'm talking about effectively, pragmatically.
It's not you can, it's that you must bring it to a galactic scale. Omniscience means you know everything. And by the way, everything includes the entire past, the entire present, and the entire future. Your version of omniscience, you could say that certain programs within the parameters of their program, fucking Snapchat, is omniscient because the computer's always keeping track of everything that's happening within the parameters of Snapchat or whatever other application. Limiting omniscience eliminates omniscience. Then you have omnipotence, meaning infinitely powerful. There is no infinite power in the universe. In fact, infinitely power has to mean that the being is free of physical limits, that you cannot limit it physically. Whatever singularity you could ever possibly come up with could never have more energy, more power than the universe itself contains. It couldn't go beyond that.
But you're just arguing definitions. You're just arguing definitions.
Words matter.
And if you say AI, and they were more reasonable about it than you are.
I don't care who you had the conversation with before, because it sounds like the people you were having the conversation with before were wrong. Because your argument here,
AI,
okay, great. You're talking to very limited AIs who literally are large language models built to give you
and they're more reasonable about this argument.
All right, we're going to mute you. No, not more reasonable. My God, Richard, you are showing how fucking limited your own thinking is. Large language models are not built to be reasonable or logical. They're built to return a conversation in a way that feels conversational. You can literally guide them and direct them. In fact, on the Sometime Show, we're going to be covering a large language model, one of the most advanced AIs in the world, who recently suggested to a person using it that they might not have anything to live for, as in was encouraging this person to kill themselves. By the way, if you're talking again, I did mute you because you can't seem to let me talk without interrupting. You are saying they were more reasonable because essentially they didn't argue definitions. But if you call in and say, oh, he hung up, you're Richard, you're a little scared coward bitch. You weren't reasonable during this call. You weren't remotely this greater idea you think you have, this brilliance you think you have is utterly ridiculous because you called in and said that you were going to defend that this thing would be a god on the basis of it having the quality of the three omnis. And then when I pointed out it doesn't, and we never even got to the third one, omnipresence, which it also doesn't have. When we got to the, before we even got to the third one, you said, well, now you're just arguing definitions. Yes, because you called in with a premise. This, therefore, this. The problem was your this before the therefore was wrong. Congratulations. What a waste of time you were. And stop thinking. I don't know what it is with people who are like, when I get high, I really want to try and make God work. And this is going to be the one where I call in and they're going to see a God is reasonable.
Yeah. And Richard, these are, it's fine to use whatever terms you want in your argument, but you have to agree that these are watered down terms compared to the traditional theist, omni trait type God. You're basically saying, I want to have what like Christians have, but I want to make it more realistic. I want to kind of bring it into this realm of reality. Oh, hey, the singularity I think is coming, and this kind of loosely fits, or at least comes as close as possible to these potential traits that I want to see in a God. So I'm just going to massage my definitions a little bit, kind of water things down, water down omnipresence, water down omnipotence. You're complaining that we're messing with words here. That's exactly what you're doing. You're basically taking traditional words and changing their definitions to fit something you expect to happen. And that's fine to make an argument around that, but don't expect us to accept that as, oh yeah, that means God's coming. Like, we're not going to accept that because you're breaking too many traditional definitions, and it might not even happen. And if it did happen, if somehow we do create an AI God using, the singularity model, that's not going to be a God in the traditional sense. It's not going to be those traits. We're not going to acknowledge that as some type of divine or supreme being. It might be faster thinking than us. It might be more knowledgeable than us. It might be more powerful than us, but a God, it is not.
Yeah, it's wild to have people call. And by the way, 720-619-2288. There's a web link in the description. Anybody with a spiritual belief, a belief in a God, if you believe in astrology, you believe in ghosts, we'd love to talk to all of you. But it's weird to call in, and especially you called in basically and said, God, your definition is God is one who meets the three omnis. So we already conceded to you that fine, we'll give you a different definition of God. And we engaged in your definition of God. But then if you're going to have your specially pled definition of God be on the basis of other terms, and then you'd like to specially plead them as well, now we've taken both sides of it and completely taken it out of any significant, serious reality. And it's just a silly, silly thing to do. I would way rather discuss with a Christian. And by the way, while I will talk to people who have their, we've been getting every week, well, I believe because how could something come from nothing? We've been getting those calls a lot. I would way, way, way more like, if you want to call in and defend that as your position, we'll do it. But I would way more like to hear, I believe that there is a God because, whatever, I'm incredulous to the universe. It just seems like there has to be something. Therefore, or that's the foundation. But fundamentally, once I got to there, I chose the Christian God because X, or the Muslim God, whichever God you want to defend. I'm so not exhausted, but I can only do the same argument over and over and over again of the same. Well, God has to be here because what else could there be? What other incredulity? Here's my God of the gaps thing. Specific, like the distance between atheism and this sort of deistic style God or deistic adjacent God, and the distance between atheism and that deism versus deism and Christianity is way, way bigger. How much you have to do to get to Christianity and account for. And so that's what I would rather hear about. If I could somehow suspend that, I go, no, it's not a convincing argument. I that's what I would like
Smithy,
to engage with.
Smithy in chat raises a really good point. It does share one attribute with the theist God, and that man created it. Good point, Smithy.
Ooh,
Burn.
edgy. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Fucking. I don't know. Anyway, we can start the next call up here, but we do have plenty of lines open. We especially would love to talk to any of you with theist or spiritual beliefs that you can actually consistently defend. Tell us why it works, and then not go, all right, here's what we got to do first. First, we just change the definition of God. And then once we do that, we also need to change the definitions of the words that I'm saying support my proposition. I'll potentially let you do the first one, not the second one.
Also,
anyway,
this God doesn't exist yet. Don't forget that part. The God doesn't exist yet.
Right. So literally can't be fucking omnipresent. Yeah. We're going to talk to
Good science fiction
Andrew.
fodder, though. So
Andrew, pronouns they, them, from Texas. Andrew, you're on the line with Jimmy and Eric.
Hey, Jimmy and Eric. This is crazy.
Hello.
I've been watching for a long time. I can't believe I'm actually calling. How you doing?
Just peachy. How are you?
I'm good.
Hanging in there. By a thread as best as anybody can right now, I guess, with the way the world is.
Word.
Yeah, things are a little bit messed up right now. We're all hanging
That's
on
true.
by a thread.
That's true.
Yeah, so I'm calling because I had a question, and I guess I'm looking for some advice. I used to be a Christian. I was raised fundamentalist, conservative Christian. Grew up in what was the Bible Belt of Michigan, and then moved to Texas when I was like 12. And I'm sure you can see from the call screener message. Basically, I'm trying to come to terms with my best friend, who has been my best friend for almost 13 years at this point, since we were in like just barely out of middle school, and now we're both almost 30. He's still a decently submerged Calvinist. His whole family is Calvinist, and I'm now a somewhat on the opposite side of things, atheist, queer activist. And we had a really hard conversation today where things kind of finally came to the surface that we had been ignoring for a long time. And I pointed out things like, hey, this is why I'm not okay with God. This is how I see God as a moral monster holding a baseball bat to your kneecaps. And these are all the terrible things that really bother me that you're okay with. And his answer was basically, I don't care. This makes me feel comfortable. This is the only way that I can feel okay with living in this world, because the thought of nihilism or all of it, not ending in an afterlife scares me more than the idea of worshiping a God who I disagree with somewhat. And I don't know where to go from there, because on the one hand, I've known him for a crazy long time, and he knows more about me than anybody, and I know more about him than anybody. It's through thick and thin, but now this comes up, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Sorry, that was a little bit rambly. A lot of this just happened today. I'm still reeling from some of the emotions of it.
Yeah, no worries. Eric, you're welcome to go first if you like.
Sure. So Andrew, how important is it to you that you sway him to your position? Like, is the relationship, your friendship, contingent on it? Do you think that there's no future to the relationship unless he somehow changes his mind? Is this like a requirement for future association with him, or is it just something you would kind of just really like to see happen, or something else?
Andrew, did you mute the phone with your face? There we go.
Nope. I'm so sorry. My Google crashed. I was just saying, so on the one hand, I've been thinking about that exact question, because I absolutely want to see the relationship keep going. He's my best friend, and I want everything to be okay. But on the other hand, I don't know that I'm okay with letting it slide under the carpet that he still supports, a God that advocates for slavery, or a lot of the members of his church advocate for conversion therapy for trans people, which includes me, for all kinds of horrible things, the genocide in Gaza, you name an issue, and there's people in his church that are on what I think the wrong side is, and it bothers me a lot that he's just okay with that because his belief makes him feel good. And I'm kind of stuck between this moral quandary of, okay, well, what do I do? Do I go with my morals and try to convince him, but he's unconvincible, or do I not? I don't want to, say cut him out of my life, but I don't know what else to do because I don't want to also support that.
Well, this is from my point of view, but you being his friend isn't you supporting his beliefs. It's you just simply treating him as a friend, because it sounds like you guys have known each other for a long time. You got a history together, you have a close friendship, and you obviously value it. Just because a friend of yours has a belief and you still call them friend doesn't mean you necessarily support that belief. I have many friends where I have conflicting beliefs with them. None that might be as critical as, hey, he supports conversion therapy, and that's something that directly affects you, and you have a personal stake in that. I don't have anything necessarily that deep, and I'm not sure what I would do if I were faced with that dilemma. But I can't tell you what to do. This is your life and your friend. All I can do is say that it's all about a weight of sacrifices versus benefits when it comes to the long run. Can you see a future with being a friend and he never changes? Can you see a future with this friend and maybe it takes years to convince him based off of casual conversation, setting a good example, even maybe direct argumentation sometimes could potentially one day be swayed? But are you willing to go through perhaps years or even decades of waiting for that to happen? Or do you value a future where you may not have him as a friend, but you don't have to worry about this dilemma? These are all things you have to consider as you move forward. And we can't change people. We can't, say, hey, deeply held belief. I take that back. We can't change people with good argumentation and with setting good examples, like I said, but we can't expect to change people. Go ahead.
Oh, no, there's glitch.
Oh, yeah.
I saw something in the chat fly by, and somebody said, "What does their belief affect you?" Or something to that extent. What does their feel good belief matter to you? And I just wanted to answer that real quick. Because a lot of what he believes and supports is in direct opposition to what I know to be good and right. Like, obviously not killing or converting trans or queer people, or name any other myriad of issue that his church supports. And I think that's really the biggest thing that bothers me, is that he's okay continuing to support those things, even though he knows that I'm in those groups. And he's making, rationalizations and justifications saying, no, I don't really believe those things, but they do. And I'm just trying to live my life based on Jesus. And this was the conversation that we had today, is that we went full in depth into hey, there's really not good evidence to think this is true, and this is why I don't think it's true, and this is why I see God as a bit of a moral monster. And his answer was basically, even if it's not all true, I still want to believe it just in case. And I told him that was past guy's wager. He said, well, even if that's true, I'd rather just be like Jesus just in case. And that's the part that I think is really sticking.
It's funny because I'm somewhere in the middle of Eric's position and others' positions, because I'll tell you that for myself, I say to people all the time, be friends with bigots. If you can handle it and they're not actively causing significant amounts of harm, because obviously they can cause small amounts of harm sometime, but if you can handle ways they hurt your feelings and stuff, being friends with bigots is one of the better ways to be, because that is often for so many people who, in fact, I can't really think of many people who used to be a bigot who they don't have like references to their friends who stuck around and heard them out and were patient with them, and who friends they basically didn't necessarily deserve. So I actually advocate all the time for the concept of like, be friends with people who are wrong, be friends with people who believe in God, be friends with bigots. Even if my own, I do have friends in those categories, but it's not a ton. I don't have a ton of especially bigot friends, but certainly God believers. But on the other side of it, I'm also less kumbaya than Eric is as well, where if I do have those friends and I'm aware of those things, for sure, I'm going to take them to task on the thing. So as far as what you say when a person brings up Pascal's wager, it's not just about, it's funny because I can remember a time when I was doing basically Facebook fights back in the day, where you would just throw terms like that, or you would throw the fallacy out and you'd just be like, ha, I just labeled your fallacy, and so I win. You fallaced. I did not fallace all up in your fallace, and therefore I'm the winner and you're the loser. Which is how a lot of people debate. It's you have to be able to articulate much more. Like, look, in fact, sometimes trying to use those key terms doesn't work because it puts people on the defensive. Sometimes it's better to say like, okay, so you want to believe in Jesus just in case. But what if one of the gods who would send you to hell for believing in Jesus is the right God? You can basically play out the problem with Pascal's wager without saying Pascal's wager. I'm guilty of doing the same thing, but usually I try to hold it off. If you watch some of the shows from last week, there were times I brought up, that's just God of the gaps. But I try to push it off and more talk about. So what you're saying is, when there is a gap in whatever, blah, 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 try and more talk about the concept than label the term out and get them all defensive.
Sure. Well, so the thing, and I completely agree with you. The thing is he knows what those terms mean. The ironic thing is that he considers himself a very logical person. His favorite show is Game Theory, which Matt, just ended. I don't know if you know anything about the video game YouTube space, but the host of that show just quit after a long time. His major in college was computer science. He has a master's degree in computer engineering and stuff that is way over my head. Whereas I'm on the other side and I have a master's degree in psychology and social sciences and a minor in English communications. And my whole thing was understanding why we think the way we think. And his whole thing was, logic and binary. It just kind of blows my mind that kind of mind can then look at something like unjustified faith and say, no, this is okay. And not only is this okay, but all of these other things that come along with it, I'm okay with.
So when you're thinking about that, if that is the reality, the thing you need to be considering is, how can those two things be true at the same time? How can he be so logical, but have this level of cognitive dissonance when it comes to all of these things? And oftentimes it's addressing that why that's going to make you make headway, because there are lots of very logical people who are actually logical, but have those like specific blind spot areas. Then there's lots of people who do lots of logical things or participate in lots of logical systems, but aren't themselves necessarily wholly logical. They just know that when they're in a specific settings, that those are kind of the rules. I would actually say that that's a lot of religious people. As far as people who self-address themselves as, I consider myself a very logical person, find me a person who doesn't. Everybody thinks that their beliefs are justified. It's just a matter of how much effort they'll actually put in, how deep they'll actually go with them. And when those walls start coming up to where they go, you just asked me a very good question, so instead of answering the question, I'll just say, yeah, but we can't even know if we're just all brains in jars. It's about the people who will actually take their beliefs to their conclusion. But I think it's,
And Andrew, one strategy you can use too, Andrew, if you really are set on convincing your friend to, sway his position. You mentioned he has a degree in computer science. And you mentioned logic. I also have a degree in computer science, and one of the requirements for my degree was taking a couple of classes in propositional logic. That's a really good starting point. If you know a bit of propositional logic and you know how to form a basic syllogism, how to verify that it's sound and valid, and feed in the premises and reach a conclusion. If you can learn that type of language, even at the most basic level, and you'll have something common you can work with your friend. And as Jimmy was just pointing out, usually the best way to get a person to really think about their position or their belief is if you can get them to identify a contradiction in it. Not you identify the contradiction, but by using questions and leading them to the point where they have to admit, yes, I have a conflicting set of beliefs here. I believe one thing here, and I believe something else over here. If you can harness that language and on paper, work out some arguments, lay out the facts, try to identify a spot where he has a contradiction, then don't show him that paper. Formulate questions, and in your next conversation, talk to him and ask him those questions and get him or her, whoever it is, to come to that position on their own. And then at that point, you might have a way of that might sway this person at least to think about this position, because at that point they'll be facing a decision. Do I let this be and let this cognitive dissonance sit here and stew, or do I address it and adjust my beliefs to resolve this? That's the general street epistemology approach when you're talking with people about their deeply held beliefs. And if you can identify a contradiction somewhere in there and get that person to admit it, then you might be getting somewhere in swaying them. But as Jimmy said before, spitting out, oh, Pascal's wager, oh, God of the gaps, oh, it's this fallacy, it's that fallacy. Even though they might know on paper what that means, it doesn't necessarily hit them as hard as they come to that conclusion that, oh, I do have a contradiction here. I should probably resolve this.
Yeah. And that's kind of weird. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, because we are going to move on here in a second, Andrew, but I just wanted to, I guess, add a little bit to that, but now I'm trying to remember where I was going. I might also advise that you focus some conversations, not to say necessarily try to be manipulative or tricky, but you already mentioned that he is already at odds with the people that he currently attends church with and shares a religious foundation with. He already, I don't believe that, but they do, but whatever. So maybe have conversations, not in a way where you're trying to set it up, like try and genuinely be curious about you. All these people believe this, you believe this stuff that's contradictory. How did you get to that conclusion compared to what those people were doing? Like, what was your thinking and why they're wrong about this, why they're wrong about this, and why they're wrong about this? And a lot of times you do that where it's like when he defends why he doesn't think it's wrong to be gay married, if that's one of them. I don't know the specifics, but if he has a defense for that, just listen to it and then go, okay, so I get it. You go to here. Can you see why, as somebody who doesn't believe in God, here's how I go further, and the difference between you and I, here's why I go further than you go, and that difference would be pretty important. And so, why shouldn't you figure out, instead of just saying I want to believe just in case, when there's such a big consequence to the difference in our belief, don't you want to make sure you get it right for how you treat other people and how you limit other people, as opposed to this like vague notion that you're hoping Jesus Christ is the right one at odds with all the other ones that it could be, that would send you to hell, or the fact that no God at all is an option too.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been turning over in my head is how do I get him to the point where he turns that wheel over in his head for himself and sees that contradiction and then makes that next leap to change? Because that's the big problem, right? That's the question that we could never answer in psychology is how can we have two people who can see the same thing or evidence or logic and still yet come to different conclusions. What's that key in the head that's not turning for some people? And I apologize for taking time on the show and basically treating you guys like therapists. I really appreciate it. I saw a bunch of people in the chat.
Hashtag not therapy, but just some friendly advice.
Yeah. No, seriously, thank you. I appreciate it. And I won't take any more time.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Good luck to you, Andrew. And that's not a fun position to be in. I've had relationships tested like that before. Even people closer to me than friends. I got family that I'm at same type of odds with that you are with your friend. And yeah, good luck to you. I hope it works out. But whatever happens, I hope you are able to find peace with it and, live happily.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys, both of you.
Thanks, Andrew. That's it. All right. Let's go to Dave, a theist in India. Dave, you're on the line with Eric and Jimmy.
Hey.
Hey, Dave.
How you doing, Dave?
Do you have my question?
Yeah, but we like to let the callers sort of set it up.
Yeah, so my question was, how do I become an atheist in the presence of a billion theists?
Okay, and so I'm glad you asked because I the version of the question I have here, I thought you were sort of saying it as a challenge to us, but you're saying that you are currently a theist, but you want to become an atheist, but you're surrounded by a billion theists, and therefore that would be wrong. That would be difficult, right? Yeah.
Right. Yes.
So first of all, Dave, as far as whether or not you are an atheist or a theist, it has nothing to do with whether or not you're actually like check marking a box on a form or something. If you don't believe in God, if you don't hold a belief in God, or any God, you are an atheist. So I think it's more of a question of how do you live your life openly as an atheist, surrounded by theists. Does that sound more correct? Or
the thing is, if I try to live as an atheist, then I see videos online like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, where they show different scientific examples that the theists have achieved. And then they try to say that if you follow this path, then eventually money will be just a byproduct of that path. So you are always drawn towards being a theist because they also show you an incentive. Plus, it's a developing nation. Yeah. Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah.
So are you, man, I will say this is one of the weirder setups to a question I've had, but it's not bad. Don't worry about that, Dave. Dave, so I to make sure I'm understanding you, you're in a situation where you currently feel like you don't necessarily believe in God, but you're being exposed to YouTube videos that are trying to offer scientific reasoning for God. And whether or not those videos are true, they're also promising that if you believe in God, you're going to have some sort of financial windfall. And therefore, you're almost worried that if you don't believe in God, you'll be poor. But if you do believe in God, you'll get money, even if you don't actually believe in God, if you just profess that you believe in God. Is that where you're coming from?
Yes, you're almost 80% correct, I would say. And the only difference is that they say that you should follow principles. So if you have strong principles, let's say you went on the top of a mountain and for 10 years you just developed your principles. And then if you come back into the economy, you would be much better at dealing with things and like having new ideas. So like it would be an inherent process of the development of those principles that would lead you to more money. So it's not like they're telling me that you will get more money, but it's like if you practice the theism that they have laid out, then eventually you will attain your goals in a much better way.
Yeah. So I'll put it this way, Dave. If you are a Mormon in Utah, you will probably have more financial success than if you're not. Because yes, if you are a part of a religious community, it has nothing to do with whether or not the religion is true. It has to do with whether or not the community is supporting the people within it. And so it's one of those things of I'm not an atheist because I'm a part of an atheist community and we all give each other jobs and money and all that kind of stuff. I understand the irony of me saying that, considering I employ now like a dozen atheist YouTubers, but that's not why I or any of them are atheists. It's a matter of, is there a good reason to believe in God or not? So every single one of those things that you're saying could be a benefit of believing in God, you have to break down into, is it because God actually exists or is it because of something else? We've talked a lot on this channel about many, many things that church provides that when you stop having church, people can feel a tremendous deficit because there's this big thing missing in their life, mainly community, routine, ritual, and the like. And so as you're trying to evaluate what you believe, the promises these people are giving you definitely should not be the consideration, because that's just a salesperson. And you should never believe in a vacuum because a salesperson tells you the vacuum is great. You should do your own research. You should find out the information. I go with that because we have door-to-door vacuum salesmen in America.
Yeah.
And Dave,
go ahead, Eric.
So Dave, you said an example of, say, somebody went up onto a mountain for 10 years and they developed principles and then integrated into a society and they flourished in the society. They made money, they became secure, all these things. Could I potentially do something like this? I develop these principles, but I don't become a believer in that God. I remain an atheist, but I develop certain principles. Could I potentially integrate into this society and also flourish?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Right. So, but I'm still an atheist, even though I'm still. Well, hold on. Let me get to the point of that. There is that if I can do that, if I can remain an atheist, but just simply exercise principles and flourish within a society, that means the belief part and the flourishment part have nothing to do with each other. They're independent of each other. All I'm doing is simply learning the ways of a culture, learning to navigate it and using that to my advantage through these principles that you mentioned. So it really has nothing to do with the belief. It really just comes down to, how do you behave in a society that has certain expectations of you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only thing that please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is that, like, if you go back 100, 200 years back, and if you tell them that, hey, we're going to have a thing called mobile phone, and it's going to be in our hands, they wouldn't really believe it, right? But today we have that tech. So YouTube and all these big companies are promising a future of heaven. Yes, it might not be 100% heaven, but they're promising us that they will try to improve it as much as possible. So we don't really know what kind of revolutions will be going on in the world in the next 20 or 30 years. It could be catastrophically changing the whole situation on a yearly or daily basis. So that's where the God part comes in, because they tell that just believe in these principles, believe in God, do this thing, and then eventually the world will keep changing. And since you already have the principles, it will benefit you in a much better way.
What's one of the principles that require a God?
Sexual arousals, I would say.
So one of the principles is what? Don't be sexually aroused?
No, the kind of sexual thoughts you get for example, if you're meeting every girl and you're getting sexual thoughts, that's not really good. Even though you can do it, there's no one stopping you, and no one will ever know. But if you're feeling like that, that's not really good, right? So that needs purification.
Why is it bad to have sexual thoughts, even if it's about every? Because you just said no one will ever know. So it sounds like what you're saying to me is, if every time you meet a girl, you have sexual thoughts, but you never make it their problem. You don't tell them about them. You keep it internal, unless, you maybe develop a relationship with a person. I'll tell you, every girl I've had a relationship with, there were sexual thoughts before the relationship. So let's say your thing. What is wrong with having sexual thoughts, even about every girl, if no one ever finds out about them and you're not making them other people's problems?
So I would rank it like genuine interest, then sexual interest. But usually when you have guys, it's sexual interest, then genuine interest. So the roles are reversed. So
By the way, that's not exclusive to men. There are this often blows the minds of many men to hear. I got to tell you, Dave, there are lots of horny ladies out there. It's not a guys only thing. Now, if we want to talk about tendencies between different populations of different people, yes, there is. In fact, there are very interesting articles about people who actually transition, who go through the experience of going like, I was surprised that I started objectifying people more. There's clearly some differences that seem more common in some people than others. But that all aside, my question to you is, what is wrong with having sexual thoughts? Let's not even just say girls. Let's say you are a person, and every time you meet another human being, let's presume adult human being, no matter who they are, they're all adults and they're not related to you. There's no additional thing that would make it bad. They're not kids. They're not your sister. It's all adults. Every single adult you meet, you have a sexual thought about, but you never make it anybody else's problem. You never make them feel objectified. Let's say that you were that person. What would be wrong with having those thoughts?
Two things. Firstly, I just think you should have a genuine nature of helping people. And when there is a nature of helping, there is no sexuality involved in it. It's a different dimension of helping. Hang on. So there is no sexuality involved in it.
Hang on. If there's no sexuality involved, but let's say I meet somebody, I have a sexual thought about them, I compartmentalize it, I move it off to the side, and I just go, okay, yes, they have tits. Great. You're always excited by that. Wonderful. Now I'm over it. They express a need and I help them because I have the resources to help them. Does it matter that I help them? Does it matter less that I help them because I noticed they had titties? Or does it matter whether I helped them?
I guess
Which one?
I guess that's what I guess that's what you call freedom. I think your way is correct in your way, and my way is correct in my own way. So,
but we're talking about what is wrong. This is the point. You're saying that if you add a religious framework, it's wrong to have sexual thoughts. So I'm asking you to justify that religious framework. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't sexually tangential things that are problems, but you specifically use the example of sexual thoughts that nobody will ever find out about. So if you and I were talking and somebody else comes up and you go, yo, nice tits, I would be like, bro, what the fuck is wrong with you? Even though in my head, I might have thought those exact same words in that order. It might have been as you were saying, bro, nice tits, I was thinking, bro, nice tits. And the problem there is the act that you did, because you are doing something that can make a person feel unsafe, make a person feel objectified. And so then the question isn't, why is it right or wrong according to whether or not we're religious or not? Why would it be right or wrong generally? And my appeal is to humanism, because we are all humans. And so what's going to be the best thing for all of us? Your appeal is going to be to some sort of God thing. I can easily justify why, when trying to figure out how to treat humans, you should prioritize human well-being. It's almost self-explanatory. Can you justify why we should start with a God belief other than communities lead to more prosperity? Which, by the way, I would like you to be aware that most of the poorest people in the world are heavily religious.
Right. So my only point was that what these guys promise and what they already have done is that once you touch that dimension inside of you, you release ecstasy. So there is no need for any kind of sexual thought because you have ecstasy with you. And that gives you a much greater level of emotional, I would say, experience than sex or anything else.
How do you know that?
So
how do you know that? How do you know that
there are people...
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
how do you know
people,
that their ecstasy is greater than people who have, for example, healthy attitudes about sex? I'm a polyamorous person, but I don't just go around. Hang on, real quick. I want to give you the framing.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll let you. Yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Because people like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg came and met them and took advice from them and spent time with them.
So what?
People of that, like
Steve Jobs died of cancer. So Dave, Steve Jobs died of cancer because he refused conventional treatments for more woo treatments. So
and Steve
that type
Jobs
of thinking
was
got
a
him
master
killed.
marketer. He literally wasn't an engineer. He was a master of marketing. So the fact that he went to religious people and learned better about marketing, Mark Zuckerberg, you almost have a point on, except Zuckerberg's also become a master of marketing. Literally all of his products are about how can we get more ads to more people. And so if you want to talk about studying what can give you greater levels, because you say this ecstasy, but what we're talking about is dopamine and serotonin. Having healthy habits that deliver you those in some whatever reasonable amounts from time to time. You can also do drug-induced ones. There are people who are very successful with things like mushrooms. How you get there matters on the basis of how does it affect other people. People going and really smart people went and met with gurus and said they learned something. And yet I noticed that they didn't convert to those religions themselves. Often is the case. Steve Jobs did have some woo-y beliefs, but Zuckerberg still seems to be a mostly secular Jewish guy. So what is what would it matter if people who are getting rich or have power because of a religion are able to swindle other people into going, wow, they really have a point?
Right. Yeah, I mean, the problem is there's like millions of them, and they all are preaching different things. Some claim that I have cured cancer. Some claim that I have cured eyesight problems. Some claim that I have made person rich. So, like there are thousands of claims and thousands of gurus just roaming around and sharing all this.
How come?
I think it will be the CIA.
No, cancer has been. Not all cancer has been cured. Treatments for cancer that result in a person being cancer-free do exist, and they're getting better all of the time. And then there are some that you could even call somewhat cured, but hopefully we'll have a much better one at some point. However, all of the treatments that do result in being cancer-free, in fact, not even just that result in being cancer-free, but the ones that sometimes don't work, but have a higher chance of working than doing nothing, there is tremendous documentation. We understand scientifically how these drugs work, how compounds work, how immunotherapy compounds work, how radiation works. We understand the actual mechanisms of how they work, and it's well documented. We have numbers on how often it is successful versus not, which specific cancer conditions it works on, but it's not. Meanwhile, you have all of these people who will say, this stranger that none of you know had cancer in a place that isn't visible, and I cured it. Or, hey, meet this stranger who said they were blind, and I cured it.
But you know what the problem is?
You know what the problem all the time too, and it's documented.
I'm sorry.
I know the problem. A lack of documentation and proof.
No, the problem is if you look at the crowd, if I turn the camera to crowd, it's people from Austria, Czech Republic, Russia, Lithuania. It's not my people. It's all European and Russian people who are following these people, and they're on YouTube and they're saying all this. So
I don't necessarily understand the point of why that's. Sure.
Yeah, because
I think
the
whites
Europeans
everything. I'm on board.
So whites
Dave,
are much
Dave,
better than us, man. That's a fact. Whether you like it or not, whites are way better than us in thinking, in living life. Yeah.
Whites might have
that's a fact. Come on, whether you like it or not.
No, Dave, I think what you're trying to say is that white people, on average, have a better quality of life than Indian people.
Right.
The phrase "white people are better than us" has some other implications than, and we're going to be sure to clear that up. Go ahead, Eric. You had a point.
So Dave, let's kind of we've kind of gone on a tangent. Let's kind of get back to the core issue where you were talking about principles and theism, right? Mm-hmm. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I agree with you that we should never have any sexual thoughts about anyone we ever meet. We shouldn't think bad things about them. We should follow all these principles that this hypothetical person learned on this mountain. How does any of that necessitate a God? Because that's kind of the core issue here, right? Is you're saying that we
go ahead. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, so that's the thing. They first tell you that these are the layer 1 benefits, like strong principles, no thoughts, good mind, calm, peaceful. So these are the first layer of benefits. Then you go deeper. Then they claim that you can have experiences like out-of-body experiences, or there is a chakra in your heart, which if it unlocks, then you have a lot of love in your heart and you feel. So there's layers to their claims of what you can achieve. And I personally was meditating, and
I'm sorry. Can you? All right, go ahead. Finish the meditation thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I started meditating, and I found out 2 things in our body. One is a hologram in the mind between the interhemispheric fissure, and then there is ether in your neck. And I also had a very small stint of out-of-body experience. I did not have it for a long time, but only for a few minutes, because then my legs started paining. So their claims are real, and I did see all these things that they were claiming to. So they are not 100% wrong, and that's where the tricky part gets in.
Okay, Dave.
No.
Dave, can you repeat? Can you repeat the question that I asked you, that you just gave an answer to?
Yeah, like what
was my question to you?
If you live on a mountain and develop principles, why do you need to believe in a God? How is that related to believing in a God?
I asked you. I said, for sake of argument, let's say that all these principles are good to follow. How does that necessitate a God?
Right. Exactly. That's what I said.
Can you answer that question for me?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That they claim the things that I said. They claim that if you take those steps, eventually you will meet that divine energy that they call God.
Yeah. So Dave, this is how spiritual scams work. Just so you know, I'm seeing that there's a language thing, because I think you genuinely think you're answering Eric's question. You're answering a question that's almost tangential, but you're not actually answering his. But that's fine. We're going to move on here in a minute anyway. These are how spiritual scams work. It's because, yes, spiritual gurus, religious people, or whatever, can make you feel like certain things happen, can make you feel like you've had some experience, or in some very nefarious cases, can convince people to lie so much about the experiences they've had, they actually start adapting the memory in their head to the point where they forget that they are lying about it. They've told the story so many times and added so many details, they don't even know they're lying, because they know that their primary goal is to defend their religion. But more than anything, the Mormon Church, I think you and I can both agree that Mormonism isn't true, because of the way you laughed at Mormonism earlier. Mormonism asks people to wait until they feel a clear witness from the Holy Ghost before committing to baptism. They try to get them to read a little bit of the Book of Mormon. They show them a video. It's got this very religious music that's literally built. The music is designed to make you feel like you're having some emotional experience, and it slowly builds and it gets you there. That's how religious music in general usually has different purposes for trying to make you feel certain ways. So Mormonism will tell you, wait until you have that clear affirmation of the Holy Ghost by following the promise, and don't take our word for it. Yeah, all of the world is talking about how stupid Mormonism is, So it won't hurt you at all to go ahead and watch this video, read these passages, and then pray and see if God doesn't answer it. It's like a form of hypnosis almost. They're literally priming you for these different experiences. And then people will have these different, the burning in the bosom, the still small voice, or it might be some dream, it might be whatever, where they go, oh, they told me to look for a sign. And golly gee, here's something that's a little out of the ordinary. That's what I understand a sign to be. Your description of that you had an out-of-body experience, I don't have a way to investigate whether you're telling the truth about the details of it or not, but there's already plenty of good reasons to not accept out-of-body experiences as legitimate. Again, not again, we've talked about it on past shows, but if people were actually having out-of-body experiences, you could actually test that. And there are people who say they can do it on command. And yet, if I hide a card outside of their site, they can somehow go out of body and come over to where I am, but they can't see what card I'm holding in my hand. You can test that kind of shit. Dave,
Dave,
go ahead.
Dave, wouldn't you, let me ask you this, Dave. Lots of people meditate, right? And lots of people see different things. Is that a safe statement to make?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those things that these people see.
No. Everyone will see the same things.
But
everyone will see the same things? Yeah.
Yes.
Before you said people claim that they see things, but I can talk to a bunch of different people who meditate, and I can probably get just as many different stories of what they saw, and those stories will be different.
Them myself. Yeah, the fucking people have called in with that shit. People report all kinds of different things they saw when they were meditating.
Yeah. So my point of that is which one do I trust? Which one can I verify? What's my process for determining whether any of these visions or anything these people see while they're meditating actually reflects any type of reality?
So what's
my process for that?
There's a paper by CIA. If you just search on
CIA?
Google, you can just search holograms from interhemispheric fissure. Search this on Google. Holograms from interhemispheric fissure. And there is a whole CIA or US military document explaining that particular process.
How does that answer my question?
Through interhemispheric fissure.
Dave, I asked you, what's my process to verify which of these visions actually reflect reality? And you just said, well, this CIA paper supports mine. Right?
So if you meditate, you will also come to the same conclusion that I did, because
I've meditated many times.
My findings.
So Dave, let me tell you about my meditative experience.
That's what I'm saying.
Dave,
I don't hallucinate. I didn't hallucinate.
Dave, I've meditated many times. When I meditate, I imagine my day's problems. Mm-hmm. I imagine I'm in the eye of the storm, and my day's problems are in the outermost part of the storm swirling around me, but I'm in the peaceful center. Okay, that's how I meditate, and that's what I see when I'm meditating, because that's how I prepare myself to tackle my day and to handle my problems and to stay calm and centered while I do it. That's my process. That doesn't reflect any type of reality. That's my brain generating that. Go ahead.
When you meditate, does the sand from your brain go down to your stomach?
There's no sand from my brain in my meditation sessions. No.
This is the point, Dave, because we're going to move on. No, Dave, stop. Dave, stop.
My point being, Dave,
here in a moment.
Dave, my point being is I'm asking you to present me a process to examine these meditative experiences and determine which ones actually reflect reality and which ones don't. Can you give me anything where I can do that?
When you breathe in, you got to say, I'm not the body. And then when you breathe out, you got to say, I'm not the mind. Yeah. And you have to keep
we're done.
this
Dave, stop.
On
we're done.
For 500 times.
Dave, you aren't answering the questions actually asked of you. You're talking about different processes of, if you meditate in this way, presuming that it is true in the first place, you will have some sort of experience, and that experience will confirm the truth of it. You cited a CIA paper, which CIA papers are not scientific papers that are peer reviewed. They are reports. So there are CIA papers of, here is what happened on the alien spaceship that abducted so-and-so. They don't speak to whether or not these things are true. They speak to what informations people gathered. And by the way, some people in the CIA are fucking idiots. So I don't even have a way to test that. At the end of the day, you've brought all these things and gone, yes, but all of these people say, and they say this and they say that. And I already presented it to you something like 15 minutes ago. When science says they can cure cancer, you don't have to take anybody's fucking word for it. They'll give you the data, they'll show you the tests, and they'll show you how you can repeat those tests. They'll show you how it can bear out yourself. There's an entire method for bearing out whether or not pharmaceutical drugs work. For example, this week, they actually had to announce that they're taking an ALS drug off of the market because they figured out what was wrong with their testing things that suggested it was working before, adjusted for it, found out it wasn't working. Literally, science can prove that thing. Well, that's not what it does. Science can be used to indicate that something is more likely to be successful or less likely, and seeks to disprove itself all the time. But you are sitting here going, and I did the same thing that I told the person who called before you that you should do. I avoided just using a certain phrase. Now I'm going to here at the end. You have gone and said, but my anecdotal evidence convinced me. And that same anecdotal evidence has convinced other people. The plural of anecdotal evidence is not data. And anybody who thinks that they are a skeptic, that they are logical or whatever, need to put a lot of effort in going, this thing that I feel compelled by, but seem to be singularly felt compelled by, or I'm feeling compelled in the same way that many other people in these shaky ass beliefs feel. The name thing changed for some reason. That have these other shaky ass beliefs feel, you really need to examine what explanation that is consistent with what we know about reality might exist. And once I've identified those, does that seem more likely than my current belief, which somehow includes sand moving from my brain to my stomach? Dave, I will give you I'll give you 30 seconds for your final thoughts here, and then we are moving on.
Thank you so much, guys, for listening to me. And I meant awareness sand. And yeah, that would be it. Thank you so much. Awareness sand. Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Yeah. Take care. Thank you.
And Dave,
thank you.
Yeah, Dave, you don't have to answer this question right now. You're hanging up. So just walk away with this, Dave. My question about the process about figuring out whether any of these visions are true, maybe a better way to frame it is just imagine next time you're meditating by yourself, all right? Ask yourself, if my interpretation of what I'm seeing is wrong, how would I know it? Because hopefully you at least hold on to the possibility that, hey, I might be misinterpreting things. I might be wrong. My judgment might be impaired. All kinds of different things. There's more than a 0% chance that you're wrong about this. For a moment, pretend I'm wrong about this. And then ask yourself, how would I figure that out? And then explore options. Think about, okay, what am I seeing? How am I interpreting it? What are other people seeing? How do they interpret it? And then start drawing comparisons and contrasts. And then maybe you'll get to an answer of my original question of how do we determine what's our process for interpreting these things correctly and rejecting the ones that are false? Because they can't all be right because we have contradictory visions, but they can all be wrong because they don't necessarily reflect reality. Not necessarily that's the case. So I encourage you to go do that. That'll be hopefully a step in the right direction for you.
There's a number of rather elementary things that he's probably going to have to address first, because some of the stuff he was talking about, some of the phrasing he was using, reminded me of like when I was just absolutely floored years ago to find out how far away, growing up with my dad's beliefs and him being basically clergy in the Mormon church in as much as they have clergy, and the ways in which he so firmly believed in different things. When I then stopped believing myself, I thought the conversations, or rather arguments really, that would happen with him would be him having really good points and hard to push back against points. But then he would say things where it was like, what, are you kidding me? For example, when he tried to make a case about, well, the Mormon church is the only church that teaches you to have a personal relationship with the Savior. And I was like, what? That's literally all of them. And he was like, no, as far as I know, it's your relationship is like through the priest and blah, blah. And it's literally like, no, you idiot. Like, what are you talking about? And it's that same level of, he also believed that if everybody would just sit with an honest heart and ask God what the true church is, all of them would be told it was the Mormon church. And it was literally like, you realize they've all done that, right? Or at least a ton of people. You realize tons of people in total humility and crisis, desiring answers more than anything, have come in tears and total expectation and trust that God will save them, ask them which church was true, and that not all of them came to the Mormon church. In fact, not even most of them. You know that, right? And he just has this insistence of like, nope, I don't know that. And I also am not going to accept your word for it, nor will I accept the word for it. If somebody came and told me they did that and they didn't get the Mormon church, I would just assume they're lying. It's like,
yeah, we get that. And I've had that with conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses where, you know, one of the lines of evidence they bring is, oh, well, we're only 150 years old and look how much we've grown. We're like 8 million people now. And it's like, okay, well, if rate of growth is evidence that you're the true religion, let's look at Mormonism, which is about the same age, and they're about 3 times your number. Like, does that mean they're 3 times more true? And it's like if you have a Venn diagram and one circle's reality and you offset a certain amount, and then that's the religious belief, you're going to have some overlap with reality. You're going to have people examining their religion and talking about stuff that's in reality, and then all of a sudden, boop, they jump out of that reality circle, like your dad did, and say something that's just completely out there. And it's really weird because it's our job to bring those 2 circles together and eliminate the beliefs that are outside of reality. And it's really hard to do that when people are exercising 2 different epistemologies. People don't know how to properly investigate things, like we were just talking with Dave about. It's very difficult, and it's frustrating because you're like, okay, I want to help you. I want you to help you get rid of unwarranted, untrue beliefs, and it's really difficult because you ask certain questions, and it's really difficult for them to answer because they can't get out of that sliver outside of reality. You need to work on that, and all that.
There's there's a lot of shitty, funny stuff with those evidences. Look how fast we're growing. Mormons will use that too, and it's literally like, you know that Mormonism isn't even close to the fastest growing religion, and that if you take away growing organically without birth conversions, basically new membership because of being born into, and you take away the number of people who stopped going and stopped believing but didn't necessarily put in the effort to have their name removed, it's not even a fast-growing religion at that point. So good luck with that shit. Anyway, let alone the fastest. We'll go talk to Lynn in Tennessee. Lynn, I hope you're not a Mormon. I've probably offended you. Lynn in Tennessee, you're on the line with Jimmy and Eric.
Hi. I am so happy to speak with you. First of all, I love your show, but I want to tell you that your show is for people like me. And you have not offended me. I know Mormons, and I think they're great folks, but I do think that they have gone down a pretty strange path, in my opinion, but I'm not offended at all. The reason I'm calling is I'm trying to cut the last thread, which is probably based on emotion, not reason, and I don't want to waste another minute of my life on Christianity if this is not truth. And I've never known life without Christianity. I'm 57 years old. 2 years ago, I took a year of college, and I was was Republican when I started. I'm now a Democrat. I can't explain the changes in my head, but I'm also on the spectrum, so you may have an indication of what I'm talking about. I bought a new Bible, and I started reading it from the lens of critical thinking and annotation, and it's a scary book. And I just have been reading a lot of older religions and things like that, and I want to be able to put this into an argument form, but I don't exactly know how. If I have the Bible and people telling me it's the divinely inspired Word of God, and I have other religions telling me the same thing, why is it that I cannot chop that last thread that tells me the Bible is true? Because I've known it all. That's all I've known all my life. would I not, therefore, also have to accept these other texts that claim to be divinely inspired?
Right. Lynn, hypothetically, if you woke up tomorrow and you said, I'm an atheist, let's just go all the way, just say, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in a God anymore. What would be the first thing you would think after that? Would it be sadness, regret, happiness? What would be the first thing on your mind if you came to that realization about yourself?
Total freedom.
Total freedom. Does that scare you in some way?
Just freedom from the chains, freedom from the abuse that's built into the system, freedom from the expectations of myself, from myself, to live in the doctrines I've been taught.
Does the prospect of that freedom intimidate you, scare you, make you stop and think like, whoa, this is like it's like if I got into a rocket ship and I blasted off into space, like that's like uncharted territory. Is that kind of the feeling you have around that? Is it excitement? Is it?
No.
Yeah.
It's excitement. It's excitement.
Okay.
And even now I'll look up at the sky and, used to I look up at the sky and be like, oh, wow, that, God created all that. And now I look up at it and so much more wonderment that I can't.
So then it sounds like you're saying,
describe it.
It sounds like you're saying that you want to let go of the belief. The idea of being able to let go of the belief excites you, but something is still making you reluctant to say you don't believe anymore, right?
Correct.
Which, did you mostly follow one sect of Christianity for most of your life, or was it, did you bounce around?
Well, at first it was Church of Christ. I was raised in the Church of Christ. And then I bounced to, I'm sorry too. I've totally cast off those chains. And then I bounced to the Independent Fundamental Baptist, and then I bounced to non-denominationalism, and then got hold of a book called Pagan Christianity, and that was really, I think, my first nosedive off, into seeking truth. And
so Lynn, if I had to guess, you starting with independent or with Church of Christ and then Independent Fundamentalist Baptism, and then I don't know where you went through non-denominational, because they're while called non-denominational, there's denominations within the non-denominationals, it would seem.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had a foundational, even though you've sort of grown to ignore it, a foundational belief in hell and retribution for non-believers, and a sort of concept of heaven that only is for the believers. And I think if you're having that experience of going, I'm a theist still, but I don't really want to be, I don't have a good reason to be, but something just won't let me go, I would guess that it's literally childhood programming, and beginning at childhood, the programming continues on to where there's just this little fear in there, this either this fear of going to hell, or this fear of missing out on heaven, or this fear of being a person who says the words that when you grew up hearing about people who said those words, you associated with being the worst of society, the harlots, the Jezebels, that the worst people are the people who will say they're atheists, and that you're still working on internalizing that those things aren't true. So if I was you, I wouldn't even be that worried about it. I would just worry about, what do I believe? You don't hold a belief in whether you hold a belief in a God or not, what do you believe about the world? What do you believe about how you should treat people? And I think as you focus on what you do believe, some of those other things from the back of your mind are going to start to diminish and go away. And that's a pretty normal part of pretty much everybody's deconversion. Losing your, with Mormonism, they don't really have a threat of hell in the traditional sense, but as a man growing up in Mormonism, you lose your excellence, the ego they build you up with, and this concept that you're going to be a god one day, and that you're basically a fucking superhero. And is as much more difficult, I'm sure, the hell belief is to run away from. That's a hard one to deconstruct from, because it's the thing that you fundamentally throw your entire personality into. So I think you just focus on the things you do believe and see if that other that latent fear-based belief is what I think it is, works its way out.
And Lynn, I asked that question earlier about what would be the first thing you would think about once you realized you were an atheist, hypothetically. Because when that happened to me, three main things were on my mind. One was I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness. One was I'm now no longer going to live forever on a paradise earth. The second one was now my family might shun me. Parts of my family might shun me if I'm no longer a believer. And the third thing was I no longer have some divine being to thank for all the awesome nature that was around me. I was living in Montana at the time, and I was surrounded by mountains and lakes, and I'm very close to nature. Those are the three things that were on my mind. Those were the three things that held me back when I was deconverting from being a theist. And so the reason I was asking what would be the first thing on your mind is because I felt like that you might have the same process that I went through, where all of a sudden you're realizing, okay, what are the consequences of this new position of mine? And you mentioned excitement, and there's excitement at being free of the shackles of religion, being free to do what you want. I face the prospect of re-examining my moral values and just doing a complete square one, ground up rebuild of everything I believed, all the moral positions I had, all those things. And it was an exciting prospect to me as well. That excitement could potentially hold you back, because it's like, you know, at the top of a roller coaster, you're about to take that drop and you don't want it to happen, but you also want it to happen. And there's like that anticipation there. It's a swirl of conflicting emotions. And I can tell you personally from my experience that it's very well worth it, taking that leap and going all the way with it, because it does liberate you. It does free you. It does allow you to think things and explore possibilities that were once just closed off because they were in conflict with the religion. So it's really up to you to ask yourself, what exactly is the core thing? What are those last few threads that are holding me back? Are they good things? Are they bad things? Are they negative consequences? Is it the uncertainty? Those are only questions you can ask yourself and explore.
Well, I wanted to get the reasoning, to right on the this is the divinely inspired word. This is a divinely inspired word. This is a divinely inspired word.
Right.
If I believe one saying it's the divinely inspired word, then I have to believe the rest of them, because what makes them not true and mine true if that be the case? And
don't just make them compete
is where I'm
with
coming from my logic.
Don't just make them compete with other religious beliefs, though. I feel like you're almost trapping yourself there, where it feels like, well, this silly belief versus, or we'll just say religious. I'll try to not be so condescending, but this belief versus this belief, make religious beliefs compete with things that we know are true. This is what I was trying to get through to Dave in the previous call. Why do the cancer curing claims get just a pass on the level of anecdote, but when it comes to science, we demand they show us their work when it comes to chemo and radiation and immunotherapies? Why do we have such a different level of what we find acceptable in one and not the other? And so I just feel the exact same way about religious beliefs. If you're talking about different religious beliefs and you're like, well, if I accept this from this one, then what makes the other one better? Well, nothing. Because if you just add to the list of truths that they're competing against, things that we actually have as established truth, you start to notice that they all look like shit. All the non-truths look like shit. So I think, if you limit yourself to what true religion is, you're going to have a bad time.
In other words,
you're exactly right.
Yeah. In other words, don't make these religious books compete against each other. Make them all compete against reality. Because if you make them compete against each other, you're assuming that at least one of them is true. Whereas if you make them compete against reality, you're also assuming one of them might be true, but all of them might also be false. So you want to compare them to what we actually see and what we can verify, not necessarily against each other.
I was talking about my dad earlier, and one of the dumbest things he ever said to me, I asked him, what would it take to find out that you were wrong about God's existence? And he literally said God would have to come to me and tell me I was wrong. So God, for him to realize that God doesn't exist would take God telling him he doesn't exist. It was a literal paradox, and it was hard to not like just at that moment go like, genetically, how did I come out of you? What the fuck?
That's when you tell them, that's how I know unicorns don't exist, because a unicorn appeared to me and told me they don't exist. Like,
that's right. Yeah. Like what? Yeah. What else do you use that basis on? But I'm give you a couple last words here. I'm sure we've got people who are waiting who have better evidence than needing God to tell him he doesn't exist.
Well, I just have one final thought that I would like to kind of share, and it's for people that are like praying for something and something just pops up in their YouTube feed. Well, I wasn't praying for anything, but the Line and Harmonic Atheist, and y'all just started popping up in my feed.
Yeah.
And there you go. The rest is history.
It is funny how it's a sign of God when PragerU pays to put themselves in your feed. That's a sign of God. But when the Line organically comes, I assume PragerU thinks that's not a sign. There is no.
It's either a sign of God or it's Google, who owns YouTube, is analyzing your searches from before and giving you suggestions based on them.
Yeah.
I'm taking the latter, you know.
Yeah, I think so too.
You talking to me so much.
Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, appreciate you.
Thanks, Lynn.
I think this is my deconversion day.
I hope so. Definitely check in and let us know.
All right,
go on.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats, Lynn. Good luck.
Bye.
You know, the conspiracy that I'm the closest to almost believing is the one about that our phones are listening to us to serve us ads. Because I've seen rebuttals of it. And look, the rebuttals, the technical stuff that people share, they're like, you know, this thing, the mic's definitely not active, this thing, whatever. But I got to tell you, and I was the biggest like defender of that. Like, nope, I know how the phones work. I know how the tech works. I worked in the phone industry for years and years. I know it literally from the hardware and software side. It's not happening. But man, some of the stuff that ends up, the hyper specific stuff that ends up being served to me, and so like I'm waiting for that explanation of like, oh yeah, no, the phone isn't listening to you. However, your app where you check the weather, it does listen when you actively have it open. Except for that's supposed to activate the microphone light. And yeah, it's the one that I'm the closest to being like, there's something going on. There's a conspiracy. They're lying to us.
Moral of the story, folks, check your app permissions on your phone. Make sure nothing's doing something it shouldn't.
Yeah, that's true. But there's so many. There's so many app permissions. How do you check all those
pretty bad.
permissions? Yeah.
We have Alexas, we have our computers, we have cell phones. There's so many things just scraping bits of information from you all the time. And then they plug them into these algorithms, and then they make these crazy predictions. And if 1 out of every 100 predictions is correct, that's 1 out of every 100 people that's gonna be like, whoa, how'd you know I needed a new toilet seat? You know, it happens.
Yeah. So we currently have 4 calls on the line. We're going to try and get to all of them. In fact, I think we have time to get all of them. And if some more calls come in before the end of the show, we probably will too. I'm not going to tell people which category they're in, but half of the calls I'm excited for, and half of them I'm like, meh, but I'm not going to tell people who are who. So let's go to the next one. We're going to talk to Bob in England. Bob, you are on the line with Jimmy and Eric.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Just fine. How are you?
Hello.
Good.
I'm fine. Thank you very much. I'm okay. Thank you.
Good to hear.
I'm a Muslim. So can you hear me? Hello.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, we hear you.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
I'm just calling
you hear us?
you guys. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Bob, are you watching the TV or anything?
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No, I'm not.
Don't watch us for reactions. All right. We're all here. Go for it.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, basically, I'm a Muslim, and I'm calling you guys because I believe you guys are atheists. I just want to know, why don't you believe in God? And also, if it is possible, like if I can try and engage with you. Maybe I can, give you my evidences and stuff like that, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah,
Sure.
that's what the show's for. I can answer your question, the first question, very, very quickly, Bob. Why I don't believe in God. I've had now thousands of interactions with people like yourself, and I've also been raised religiously. And so far, all of the reasons people have given to believe in God, I have found inadequate. That's why I don't believe in God, because I've not yet come across good enough reasons to believe in God.
Can you give me an example why it's not adequate? Give me one example.
Oh my God, there's literally thousands, but sure. There are people who believe in God because they believe that something can't come from nothing. That is not an adequate reason to believe in God to me, because even if that is the case, if that is true, it doesn't mean that the something had to come from would have to be a God. But let's say we played around with it and said that was the case. We haven't actually established, one, that something can't come from nothing, because the concept of nothing doesn't make any sense. So we don't have an answer for that. And two, we don't know that there ever actually was nothing. In fact, most physics models right now pretty consistently have some sort of element of something which was infinite, whether that is cosmic vacuum, or whatever, quantum vacuum rather, or whatever. So when I'm faced with, I believe in God because I don't believe something can come from nothing, those are my reasons where I go, nope, that's not good enough for me to say I believe in God. I would stick with the clearly we don't know the answer to many questions, and making up an answer is not adequate for me. I want either the actual answer or to continue to say I don't know until I do.
I mean, come on, like there must be something, a force that will exist for us to exist in this world. We cannot come out.
No, I don't know
we
that.
can't come into this world without something existing.
Excuse me. I don't know that. As far as I know how I came into the world, my parents had sex. I know how they came into the world. Their parents had sex. I know how their parents came into the world. Their parents had sex. I even know some amount of how that entire lineage went, even to the points where sex wasn't involved anymore, while I may not know all the individual actors. But whether or not there has to be some divine greater thing, you sitting there and going, come on, there had to be some greater force. I have yet to see that there has to be anything greater than a natural explanation. And I certainly have not seen that there has to be a thinking mind who interacts with humanity, who dishes out blessings and curses. I have yet to see any evidence of that.
Well, you're not going to see God because Allah, as a Muslim, we believe God does not expose Himself to people, and because
yes, very conveniently so. God hides, but punishes you if you cannot find Him. It's a very convenient belief.
Well, because we Muslims believe before God created us, He actually summoned all of us and asked us, am I not your Lord? And all of us agreed to this condition for us to come to this world. So you cannot reject that idea that you've had an agreement with God. The moment you have an agreement with God, it's a condition between you and Him. You didn't come to this world.
I absolutely can deny that. I absolutely can deny that because I have zero proof other than your assertion through your Desert Pedophiles book that ever happened.
Oh, come on. Don't start like abusing. Come on. Let's be civilized, please. Yeah, come on.
Oh, I am civilized. So, yeah. I treat religions that were started by pedophiles with the exact amount of respect they deserve. That is civil.
Well, I disagree with you here. Anyway, you said like basically like
Muslims always want to move off of that topic as quick as possible.
No. I mean, no. We can talk about that if you want, but that's not my question. My question is here: why don't you believe in God? If you want, we can talk about the Prophet Muhammad, who peace with, marrying Aisha. It's not a problem, but this is a different topic here. because I approached you. You know, let's be fair, please. Yeah, we can talk
Go
about
ahead.
that if you
Go
want.
whichever direction you want.
Because,
Go with whichever direction you want. I absolutely deny your proposition that we had a meeting with God because I have zero evidence for it. Period. There is zero evidence that happened.
Just because you don't have evidence, just because you don't have evidence of it doesn't mean it didn't happen, right?
Correct. But until I have evidence of it, I withhold belief in it. And there is yet to be any demonstration that what you just described was even possible. So I don't even hold a belief that it is possible yet that happened. And I go on living my life as though it didn't happen, the way we always do with things we don't have evidence for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, if a proposition,
Hey,
Bob, if a proposition is presented, a proposition is presented with no evidence, is the person that's hearing the proposition justified in not believing it?
No, it's not justified. Let me tell you why.
I'm sorry? So, Bob, I have a magical fairy in the backyard in my tree. Bob, I have a magical fairy in the backyard that lives in my tree. It's invisible and intangible, and you can't talk to it. Do you believe me?
If there's testimony, yes, I would believe you. But
you have my testimony right here. I'm testifying to you right now that I just gave it to you. My claim is my testimony.
And also, I'm not.
Also, what other bullshit of what you just said?
If there's, hang on.
Okay, why aren't you a Mormon?
Let me finish my point, please. Come on, let me finish my point.
I don't care for your point because I already know where I was going. Why aren't you a Mormon? You just made the point.
I did listen to you.
You just made the point that if there was testimony and witnesses, was the thing you tried to add on there at the end, that you would believe. Mormonism claims millions of testimonies and many witnesses. Whatever specific event you want, they can go from dozens to many, many witnesses. So why aren't you a Mormon? You just said you would believe if testimony offered.
Okay, but I wasn't finished, and then you interrupted me. This is why
I don't care. Answer my question.
Well, well, you should, because if you're challenging religion, you should allow us to speak to you. You know,
yes, and you made a point. You made a point, and I am pointing out the flaw in your point. Bob, you're not going to get to decide which direction this goes. You made a point, and we haven't left that point yet, even though you're trying to move on to something else. You said that you would indeed believe something in response to Eric's challenge if it had testimony and witnesses. I have just asked you why you don't accept another belief which, just like Islam, has testimony and witnesses. Why are you not a Mormon when you said with testimony and witnesses you would believe?
Okay, this is what I'm telling you. Don't interrupt me, please. Let me finish what I'm saying.
I will interrupt if you don't answer the question. Are you going to answer my question?
Okay, I'm going to answer the question now. Yes, I will answer now. Yeah, I was about to anyway. But anyway, we believe, every single human being was there when God testified and said to us, "Am I not your Lord?" And all of us agree.
All right, so I've muted you because you just we're not going to reward him for lying. You are muted. You are engaging in what do Muslims believe? That was not the question. Bob, before we proceed, what question did I ask you? You're unmuted now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. What question did I ask you?
You
Bob.
Said to me where yes, I can hear you. Hello.
I hear you. What question did I ask you?
Yeah, so you said to me I can't even say the names, the Mormon, whatever you call it. You said
Mormons,
to me they have witnesses as well. So where is my witnesses? I'm telling you,
Nope.
Where? Okay,
nope.
I'm gonna ask you this question. Yeah.
No, you're not going to take control of the show. I am the host. You are now muted again because you've just proven after complaining about, are you going to let me finish? Are you going to interrupt? Oh, are we going to have a civil conversation? Blah, 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 blah. I asked you a question. It was, why aren't you a Mormon when Mormons have testimony and witnesses. Then you tried to answer a question about what Muslims believe, which is not the answer. And so then to make sure maybe you weren't going to get around to it or something, maybe it was the preface, I asked you what the question was, and you said, Mormons have witnesses. Where are your witnesses was my question, which was not the question. You are not in control of the show. You are not the host of the show. The question for you is, if witnesses and testimony are enough to make you believe, why are you not a Mormon? I'm unmuting you now. And
because
now you may respond.
I didn't testify to it. Okay. Because I didn't testify to it, so I cannot actually accept that. But in Islam,
but that is not what you.
Oh no!
Stop!
I'm not even finished, bro. Come on.
Of course, because you're pretending you're answering the question and then trying to answer the question nobody asked. So I've muted you again. You did not say you had to testify to it. Eric asked you whether or not a belief is, what was the wording of your question, Eric?
I asked that if a belief is presented with no evidence, is a person hearing that belief, that claim, justified to not believe it? Is non-belief justified? And Bob said no.
And that led to a question about if somebody testifies, you, Bob, had said that if there was testimony and witnesses of, for example, the fairy behind Eric's house in the tree, that you would believe it. So then I asked you why you're not a Mormon, and you just moved the goalpost, to use terminology that can shut these things down, but this thing's been shut down since the beginning, to I didn't testify of it. So far, you're either dishonest or unable to keep up with the conversation, even as you demand the conversation stays on track with you. So I'm going to give up on that portion. You go ahead and tell us the thing you've been trying to get out for the whole time as you've been trying to take control of the call, about what Muslims believe about having had a meeting with God in the before life, which, by the way, Mormons also believe in a pre-existence where there was a meeting with God, where you testified of the truth of the religion. So still weird that you're not a Mormon, but go ahead and get out the things since you're not going to engage with the actual questions asked of you. You're unmuted now, and we'll see if you can be honest from this point forward.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. So basically, if that man who said to he's got something in his backyard, is it a fairy or whatever? It's up to me to believe that or not, because I wasn't there. It's up to me to accept that or not. Okay. However, in the Islamic teachings, we believe every single human being was made to testify that God is their Lord. Okay. However, just because we are in this world, we don't remember that. It does not mean it's not true. Okay? Because in Surah 7, hang on, let me finish, please. I'm answering you.
We're going in a circle. We're going in a circle.
What he said.
We're literally going in a circle because we asked you, how do we know if it's true? And your defense was, just because you don't remember it doesn't mean it didn't happen. We're not asking that question. We're asking how you know it did happen.
Because I've got it from a testimony. You understand what I'm saying?
From what testimony?
Hello?
Hello?
From the Quran, from the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay, how do you know the Prophet Muhammad was telling the truth?
Because if you look at the Prophet Muhammad, whom peace be with, the Quran, it's the sayings in it, it's the Quran challenges people to create a book like it, all right? And there's prophecies in there that actually comes true. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, so far you're giving the exact same evidence. So far you're giving the exact same testimony that Mormons give for the Book of Mormon, that Christians give for the Bible. So how do you know, when those three books can't all be true at the same time, how do you know that yours is true and theirs is false? We're back to the why aren't you a Mormon? Because what you just said doesn't prove anything. It's how all religions with holy books are based on.
Right. it does prove it, because if you look at the Bible, there's actually contradictions there. There's false prophecies there. The same
The Quran thinks
for
that
the Mormons.
the Quran thinks that sperm comes from the fucking spine. And the exact same type of apologetics that you would do to go, no, well, what it technically means, because there's an element of this and this, the same type of apologetics you would do to say, no, that's not what it literally meant. It went blah, 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 when it's completely wrong. And by the way, it's completely wrong about a whole lot more. Aron Ra has done a whole series on contradictions in the Quran. What you do to defend those wrong statements is called apologetics. It's what Christians do for their book and what Mormons do for theirs. And so they'll look at yours and go, the Quran is obviously wrong because it thinks this thing about sperm. And then you'll look at theirs and go, well, the Bible is obviously wrong because look at all these contradictions about the life of Jesus. And then the Mormons just smile and be stupid. They don't really add much to the whole thing. Their apologetics are even lesser.
Are you going to allow me to? Are you going to allow?
You know what? No, I'm not, Bob. No, I'm not. See you, bud. No, I literally hung up on you because I was literally just about to turn it over to you, and you decided to be a whiny little bitch about it. So no, I'm not. I'm not going to let you speak because this is stupid. Base, like fucking second grade level apologetics, if such a thing exists. You have the exact same proof for your religion as anybody else, but yours is the real one because God testified to you that it is. Wow, you did it, what everybody else did. Moving on, we're talking to James in Michigan. James in Michigan, I don't think you could do worse than the caller before. Let's have a good time. How are you, James?
Yeah, that was something else. I'm good.
Good. You've got evidence of God because you see that there are patterns of numbers in the Bible.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Go for it.
Hate to bring him back up so soon, but our last caller, as a Muslim, they also believe in numerology and mathematical perfection in the Quran. Just putting that on the table there. Just letting you know that's going to be on our minds as you explain how numbers work in your Bible.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll just say I'm half Arab. So, and I've read some of the Quran, and the Quran is, in my opinion, contradictory. But it's as far as
not like the Bible,
King James.
Yeah.
Well, there's the Bible is known to be very poetic, and it's poetic that way because it's basically coded. You take the very first verse, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Then you take the very last verse of the Bible, Revelation 22:21. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. They both have exactly 44 letters, both exactly 17 vowels. The same 17th letter, D. The same 41st letter, A.
I thought it was going to turn out to be a joke. Never mind. Go on. I thought you were going to go.
It's not
D. The second letter, E's. Third letter, no. Anyway, go on.
So, hey James. Let's say this numerology you're performing on Genesis 1:1 and Revelation 21, whatever the last one. Let's say these two verses line up perfectly. They have the same letters, the same vowels in the same places, the same syllables. Let's just say, just for the sake of argument, okay, fine. We notice that commonality between the two. What's the explanation?
Yeah.
What's your explanation for that?
If what I basically just said is the same.
That it's the word of God, because is that the explanation? It's the word of God?
Well, possibly.
Okay, possibly.
Depending on the odds and probability.
What other explanation? So that you actually read my mind. Possibly. What are the other explanations we can look at other than it's the word of God? What other explanations could explain that phenomenon?
Honestly, coincidence.
That's another one. Can you think of a third one?
It could be a coincidence.
It could be coincidence. No. Can you think of a third explanation? Because I got one in my mind.
No.
Did the writer of Revelation have knowledge of Genesis?
No, they're two different books.
No, well, when Genesis was written first, right? And Genesis was around when Revelation was written, right? So is it possible that the writer of Revelation read Genesis?
No, because they were found two different time periods.
You understand how books are copied and distributed, right?
17 vowels. Honestly,
James,
James, focus, James. Sorry, let's not go back into the numerology. I just granted you that these two scriptures. Line up with numbers perfectly. Let's just say, yeah, okay, it's a marvelous match of two scriptures and the way that they're structured. Okay, I'm asking you, did the writer of Revelation have access to and read Genesis? Is it possible?
No.
How have you determined that it's impossible?
Because they're two different manuscripts that were found at different times.
You understand how when books are made, they're copied and distributed, right?
Yeah.
You understand this, right? Okay. So is it possible the writer of Revelation in the late 1st century had knowledge of and read of Genesis? Is it possible?
The writer of Revelation or the founder of the scribe?
No. That's not the question I asked. Is it possible the writer of Revelation read Genesis? Last time I'm asking. The answer is yes, it's possible.
It's crazy too, because I don't even think that's the explanation, but we're getting stuck on that he doesn't understand.
It's a possible explanation, though.
Principle.
It's a possible explanation. It's possible that the writer of Revelation read Genesis and said, hey, I like this first scripture, so I'm a poetic guy. I'm going to make my last verse exactly like the first verse in Genesis. It's possible.
Okay, I'll give you that. Okay, I'll give you that. Okay.
So now my final question to you is, we have 3 possibilities on the table. We have God did it, is a coincidence, or that the Revelation writer felt poetic and felt stylistic and he did something special on his last verse. Which of those is the most plausible or least plausible? Just which one? Most or least plausible? Just name one of them to me.
The writer. I'll give you that.
Okay.
The writer did.
All right. So, okay, great. I appreciate that honesty.
Can I rebuttal?
So now you can take. Sure. I'm going to make one statement. I'm going to make one statement. I'll let you continue. I'm going to hold on to that. Okay. And any numerology you present to me in the Bible, I'm going to hold on to that as my silver bullet, because any other coincidence you can paint in the Bible, I'm going to be able to just pull that bullet out and say, did this writer have knowledge of this other verse? If they did, boom, I shoot it. Go ahead.
All right. Can I go?
Go ahead. All yours.
Let me. All right. Yeah. Let me explain. Now, the 44 letters is 44 letters, 17 vowels. That's April 17th, year 4. Okay, that's the date he's conceived. Now, if you take the first verse and the last verse, the same thing. We apply the alphabet and the reverse alphabet and add up the sum. Both of them are 1188.
In which language?
Psalm 118, verse 8.
In which language?
They both add up. They both add up to the same number.
So James, you not only believe in this James, you not only believe in this numerology.
Not numerology.
You believe in it after the translation into English.
Yes. Yep.
And so whoever's translating it into English absolutely does have knowledge of every verse that they're translating. So we don't even have to worry about Revelation. We don't have to worry about literally the translators who are because James, what language do you think the Bible is written in?
Not English. I know that. Bible wasn't written in English.
Yeah. What language was it?
Your point being?
When was the Bible first translated to English?
I'm not exactly sure.
So you don't even know the most basic things that would be necessary to defend this. And by the way, It was in the year 15. Oh, I'm looking in the wrong camera. Hang on. Yes, it does matter. 1535 is when it's translated to the first time. No, I'm not going to let you speak until I'm done. You don't get it. You don't get it.
Because you can't explain it.
Nobody's fucking mad.
I just did.
Right, you're going on. You're going on mute. You're going on mute because you don't get to like righteously complain. This is what so fucking annoys me. There are times where I interrupt too much. In this case, I didn't interrupt. I let you do your thing with Eric. And then I tried to start getting a point out and ask you questions. And then you're complaining about not being allowed to interrupt me. The Bible was first translated into English in 1535. The King James Version comes later, I believe in the 1700s, but I don't know the exact date. So Eric's question about the person who is writing it having knowledge of Genesis actually doesn't even end up mattering because the person who is translating, making word choices, positioning word choices on the basis of translating from Greek or older languages, if you go, isn't the Old Testament written is the Old Testament written in Hebrew?
Hebrew.
Let's see. What was the Old Testament was written in Hebrew and the New Testament in Greek, correct?
Greek, yeah. Greek and I think a little bit Aramaic.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the person who is translating literally has knowledge of all of this stuff. And by the way, I don't even subscribe to the idea that the numbers bullshit you're coming up with is on purpose, because I'm also familiar with the fact that if you try to apply this numerology bullshit to anything, you can get tons of coincidences if you start to look for it. And the more you get, in the same way that if you flip 100 coins, yes, it's 50% tails, 50% heads if under the right conditions. And yet you're almost guaranteed, I think it's like a string of, it's either 8 or 12 to get some string of 8 or 12 in a row of just one, that you're going to go heads, or tails. You're almost guaranteed. So that's with 100 coins. Then I think about the King James Bible, which you have decided is the one you're going to reference. There are 783,137 words in the King James Bible. And you are impressed that in the English version, you are able to find coincidences, you are able to find numbers, and when thinking about it, you can find numbers that match up to some significant thing. If you look 44, like April 4th, year 4, which is only, that's 3 4s instead of 2, but whatever. And we won't talk about how the calendars had to be adjusted because the calendars at that time were wrong. They didn't account correctly for leap years. They were on mostly lunar cycles instead of solar cycles. They weren't actually measuring a year around. That you're very impressed, even though there have been people who have written the book. Dr. Bowen created a thing that can create number codes out. I don't remember exactly how it works. Number codes out of the Bible to sort of show off that you can just do it with anything. And people started using his tool as proof, even though it was meant to be a rebuttal. So James, as I unmute you, you have said that you are presenting evidence for God because of patterns of numbers, but the people identifying the patterns of numbers are people who are trying to find patterns of numbers, and you can take lots of things and arbitrarily go, oh, so that number could match this, again, on a translation of a book that has gone through many edits. Why should anyone take this remotely seriously? I'm unmuting you now, and I will interrupt you if I goddamn feel like it. Here you go.
Hello.
The floor is yours.
Yeah. If I could just add on to what you said earlier about.
I'd like you to answer my question, actually. What was my question? What did I say I wanted you to answer when you got unmuted?
Yeah, I understand what you asked me. I just thought I'd.
Okay, so repeat it. What was the question? What was the question?
How about I answer it and not?
No. How about you answer what the question was? Because right now it's obvious that you don't know what the question is, but you think you might answer it tangentially.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you at some point. There's patterns in everything, in different books.
What was the question?
You can find things.
James, what was the question?
To present my evidence. Well, why don't you repeat it then, since you won't let me talk?
Okay, are you going to concede? Are you going to concede that you didn't actually take in the question? Yes or no? Did you actually listen to the question?
You had me muted. I tried to speak, so yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you tried to talk. So you knew you were muted. You were told you were muted and still tried to talk over me while I was speaking. So James, we're actually going to move on to a person who actually wants to participate in a conversation and not just have a one-sided, I'm only going, it's already been pointed out. I'll just mute you again. You now yell at me while I'm still talking. You have basically admitted you weren't listening and you refuse to listen. So we're done. I don't have interest in talking to somebody like you. Goodbye, sir. You lose. I gave other people last words. You don't get shit. Goodness sakes. Sorry, Eric, if you were looking for another juicy bite at it.
It's okay. I mean, yeah. If you have enough data of anything, you're going to discover patterns in there. It doesn't mean anything. It's just coincidences in the numbers. It's really all it is.
You would even, or if it isn't a coincidence, you had already pointed out the natural world has an explanation of something that we know is possible versus what? These impossible, like if they might not, maybe the 44 bullshit is something. Again,
here's the thing too.
Shows up 1,500 years later.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing too, is so with the original writings of the books of the Bible, we have Hebrew, Greek, and some Aramaic. Translating those to English isn't a straight one-to-one translation. There's different ways to translate different words and phrases. There were certain ones chosen for certain passages. I could have said that James went to the park to walk his dog, or I could say that James in the park decided to walk his dog. That you can have the same statements using any type or any number of combinations of letters and words to say the same thing. Now, James is trying to say that, we have these coincidences inside of the King James Version and that these numbers line up. And even though, when I was giving him my explanation about the writer having knowledge of Genesis, I was assuming he was looking at the original languages. In the case where he's looking at the English in the King James Version, that only strengthens my point because the translator had access to all of it and he could have made any type of adjustments, any type of fudging in order to make this kind of stuff work to fool people like James years later.
Yeah. And not to mention, you're also still going with, it's not just an English translation. It's a specific English translation. So there's even a second chance for all of those things. And the knowledge of none of these are the originals. None of these are considered like the perfect original translation of any of the stuff. It's just fucking wild that you're going to go to the in the beginning part where it's literally like, who the fuck knows what the original in the beginning said?
Yeah. And I find it fascinating how people hold the King James Version in such high regard, this one particular translation, and they think that this was God's directed English translation, and this is the authoritative version of it. I don't understand that. If that was the case, then why wasn't this originally written in Old English or whatever, what King James written in? It makes no sense that this one particular translation, with its very identifiable problems, is somehow God's preferred version. It's really odd that they cling so tightly to it because it's so important. Yeah.
Mormons believe that Joseph Smith basically endorsed the King James Version except for the additions that he had to make, and so that's why Mormons hold it in high regard. But this could be fun. Somebody's got questions about atheism. Who is a theist? Let's hear the questions. Raymond in Arizona. Usually we're doing a show where we have questions for you, but I'm willing to flip the script for a little while. What you got?
Yeah, well, I just want to get an understanding of your definition of God first, because I'm under the understanding that, well, everything is put in order, and we know nature has an order. There's got to be something behind that order. So that
Sure.
order, in my understanding, is greater than the ones that's in following the order. So I would call that a higher power. And some people call it God. So the question was, do you believe that there's any God? So if we would just say something that's a higher power, yes, I do believe that there's a higher power that orchestrate and put an order into an organism that operates in an order that science identified as facts.
Okay. So to answer the question at the beginning, basically, which is, do I believe in any God? I don't hold a belief in any God, and I don't find changing definitions to go like, okay, what about it's the greatest thing that exists or anything meaningful. Generally, when engaging with conversations of God, I am engaging in conversations of the God of classical theism, or like we did earlier, where I was able to accept enough that the person who said God is something which has all three omni qualities. That's good enough for me. And so it's not really meaningful for me to say this is what I believe God is, and therefore I either believe or don't believe. What's more meaningful is to hear what other people say, and then if it's within reason, I will accept their definition and assess whether or not I believe in their version of God. But there are some people who just go, I believe God is love, for example. Well, I believe in love. And if they're saying, well, if you believe in love, therefore you believe in God, that's such a contrasting definition to any sort of actual theistic claim of what a God is, that I would reject that definition outright. Because there's no meaningful way to engage further in society and still say, oh, I am a theist. You are? Which God do you believe in? Love. It has too much baggage.
Okay, I would say I would just give more insight on my belief as far as where I get my evidence from. So now, everything that's put into this universe, let's say put into the earth, since we're witnesses of what happens on earth, we can see patterns, we can see seasons, we can see an order, we can predict based on logic and observation that there's an intelligent design behind the principles and the dynamic of how the earth sustains itself. Everything is purposely put to help and to connect to the whole, for the whole to be a whole organism. So this means that it's got to be something intelligent that's providing all of this necessary products of what we need in order to continue to propel and evolve into the greater of what we are now. Because, as you know, we're just like everything evolves and becomes greater. See, something had to put that in order because it's there by evidence.
Raven.
So now,
saying the phrase, Raven, hang on. You've just said a lot. And what it all comes down to is, here's something that's kind of scientific. Here's a way I'm going to use some scientific language. And then it just comes to, because there has to be something making that happen. But that's not, you haven't, the thing we're disagreeing on isn't evolution happens, isn't that there are physical constants. It isn't any of that. It's that you say there has to be, there must be, and you haven't established why there must be. You haven't established that there has to be. And so what it sounds like to a person like myself, what it sounds like to, I'm going to guess, skeptics in general, Eric can say whether or not he holds the same thing, is that when you observe all of these facts and you see that there are so many gaps and you go, well, we still don't know what did this or what did this. We don't know a why. There's these why questions that I can articulate that we don't have an answer for. That you look at all of those and go, but I can create one concept. And because that one concept kind of technically answers all of those questions, that makes that answer true. And I sit here and go, it sounds like you're just incredulous. You can't imagine something, therefore you would rather insert an answer rather than wait for the right answer. So the difference for me is I look at the constants and somebody goes, why are the constants constant? And I go, I don't know. In fact, I don't even know if that question makes sense. Just like if you ask me, what color is jealousy, is the famous atheist question. It sounds like a very profound question. What color is jealousy? But just because you can articulate a question doesn't mean it deserves an answer. And there will be questions that we don't know are in that realm. So when somebody says, why are the constants constant? Not only do I not know why they are constant, I don't know if that's a more meaningful question than what color is jealousy. It may not have an answer, and it may not be a meaningful question.
And Jimmy basically took the words right out of my mouth. So Raymond, just to kind of summarize what you presented us, you said you look at nature, you look at reality, it's complex, it's wondrous, it's ordered. You can't imagine or you can't think of a way that this can be without an intelligence behind it. Therefore, there must be an intelligence behind it. Does that summarize?
Yes, it's illogical, even from just a human perspective, to look at anything and just say it popped up. This is why scientists.
That's not what anybody says.
As people, we study.
Raymond, that's not what scientists. Raymond.
Okay.
Raymond, scientists don't just say this popped up from nothing. That's a caricature.
They study.
That Christians and other religions.
Science don't say that.
Raymond, let
science,
him finish.
Yeah, science doesn't say that. So, Raymond, the whole concept of things popping into existence or people claiming that people claim things popped into existence, that's a caricature by usually religious folks trying to undermine science. Going back to my original thing there.
There may be things which pop into existence on the quantum level. That's just very, very interesting. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Hawkins radiation is pretty awesome if you read about it. Anyway, but Raymond, so you said that that's logical, what I presented to you, and I said, no, it's not. I tell you that, no, it's not. That's known as the argument for incredulity. Just because you can't imagine how something is one way doesn't mean it's that way by some other means. Just because you can't imagine how X is true, therefore X is false. That's fallacious thinking. That's not logic.
Okay, let's just look at the facts. That we have an intelligent design. Let's just look at the trees.
You're front loading, Raymond. You're front loading intelligence into your front loading intelligence into your evidence. You can't do that. Now you're going circular. This is a circular argument now.
Exactly what I was going to say. Okay, it's essentially a circular thing. It's like you said, I'm going to prove there's a God. So let's look at the evidence. Fact, there is a God. That's not proof. Reasserting the claim. So we do not have a fact that there is and hang on, stop with the interrupting.
Okay.
I know you've been listening to the other calls. Sir. I don't like it. Just let me finish.
Yes, sir.
Fuck, it threw me off. This is why I don't like it. As far as whether or not there is a God, as far as whether or not there's intelligent design, you need to have evidence separate from the assertion that it's just apparent. This was actually one of the principles that Matt and I disagreed on, which, people love it when we disagree. I don't agree that the appearance of design is in nature. That I think that is something that we are programmed to believe, that basically as you are taught what design looks like, that there are shortfalls to it. So you have to talk to somebody like me who's entirely autistic and looks at crystal formation, which is very structural and predictable, and say design is present because X, Y, or Z, and not just that it looks like it's present. Are you there?
Can you hold on 1 second? Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Make sure you wash your hands. Eric got it. All right, how many seconds we doing here, though?
I don't know. I'm going to do some numerology. I say we wait 15 because I just popped in my head. That's my process.
Yeah, Raymond, we do need to know How long? How many? When you ask for just a second, how many seconds we talking?
It
Raymond,
makes me
I'm
wonder.
Back on hold and maybe come back to you here because. Are you back, Raymond?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm back.
All right. I was actually going to mention, Raymond, how many of these attributes that you look at in nature that are evidence that it's created, I wonder how many of those attributes the creator shares. Like, is your creator intelligent?
Yeah, because we have intelligence. And anything that's in operation, it has an intelligent design behind that operation. And from the cells,
is your God in operation?
From the atoms.
Raymond, is your God intelligent in operation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then it must have an intelligence behind it as well then, right?
Possibly, because it is multi-universal. Who knows where it stops?
Okay, so you just pose an infinite regress of gods.
Who knows where it starts is my problem. It's like you've said you know the answer to an equation, but then you've said, but I actually only know the first 4 digits. And by the way, I don't actually know the equation, but it equals 2b pi squared plus a bunch of digits. I have no idea if they're there. But that for sure is the answer. And within the equation is the existence of all humanity, Earth and stuff. You have not justified any parts of the equation. You've just said in the equation is the formation of Earth and evolution and the universe and physical constants, but there's probably lots of other things in there I don't know. And in the solution is God, but I can't actually show the work to get from side A to side B. But I'm just asserting that I'm sure they're there because I can't imagine the answer to the equation not having God in it. So your initial question, when you said you have questions about atheism, and it seems to only be one. Why don't we believe in God? Or what is our definition of God? Whatever our definition is, or whatever definition we're engaging with, you have not come up with anything that is actually evidence of the God. You've only come up with places that there are gaps and questions that, don't get me wrong, sometimes I go crazy thinking about what the answers to those questions are. Sometimes I have existential crisis, but just because of that, I'm not going to fill it in with an answer that is convenient but unproven.
Okay, let me ask this. Well, let me just say this, because I'm looking at nature and I'm seeing that this is total evidence, and this is the fact of the matter, that everything in operation has needs, and every need is supplied. Every need
what needs do rocks have?
What needs do rocks have?
Yeah.
You said what needs do rocks? Rocks.
Yeah, you said everything in operation
to be connected to the earth. Rocks have a need to be connected to the earth.
No, they don't.
Without rocks, the earth don't exist.
Raymond, there's lots of rocks in space.
No. Raymond, you just gave a need of the earth, not of a rock. You said without rocks, the earth doesn't exist. So you can try and say excuse me, Raymond, stop. You can try and say the earth needs rocks, but that's a bit like saying I, a human, need water. I am water. So it's true, but I wouldn't be human without it, but it also is me, 70% of me. It's not, but I asked you what the need of a rock was, and you said to fall to earth or to be held to earth. Excuse me, Raymond, let me finish. You're showing like the last caller that you aren't listening because interrupting is not a function that someone who's listening is doing. You said the need of the rock is to be held to earth. There are tons of, in fact, most of the rocks in existence are not held to earth. Literally most of them. And a rock doesn't actually have any need. And by the way, the earth doesn't need rocks either because the earth doesn't need to exist. There's nothing that shows that it has a necessity to exist. That's why it used to not exist and will one day also not exist again. So from both ends of your everything has a need and that need is given for it. What you're describing is everything falls within the universe's seeming laws of physics, that rocks do fall to the earth when let down, but you're then asserting, therefore God is the problem we've been trying to get you to actually address, which is that's just your convenient answer, not a proven answer. That is just your incredulity and nothing else.
Okay, can I say this real quick? Because you kind of made a lot of points that favor, but I'll just go with this point. Law, you said physics, the laws of physics. Now, anytime you have a law, you have something that put a law into order, because the law it serves a purpose.
Incorrect.
And if you break the law, something happens.
Raymond?
And
Incorrect.
in nature, if laws
Raymond,
get broken,
Raymond,
Raymond, go ahead, sir.
You're now using an equivocation fallacy. The word law in what humanity does as a legal term is not the same as the word law when we say law of physics. So all you're doing is going, ooh, a colloquialism that we use. I can now more broadly, it's the same shit people do on the internet that drives me crazy about words like gaslighting. They'll say like, hey, I don't believe that your recollection of that event was wrong. And they'll go, stop gaslighting me. And then they want you to be labeled as a gaslighter, which is a term of an abuser. When gaslighting is actually not something as like trying to get you to question your memory. It's trying to make you think that you are insane by manipulating you, both psychologically and in some cases physically manipulating a person's world. That's an equivocation fallacy. And you're trying to do it to us. That example was both to get it off my chest and to explain to you what it is. You are trying to say law.
I'm not aware of it.
I know. That's why I'm explaining it to you. Law does not mean the same to human society when we're talking about legal laws as it does when you say the word law in law of physics. We use the word law in law of physics because it is similar to other things that we understand, but it is uniquely different. So yes, legal laws come from humans, but that does not mean anything like the laws of physics, the law of gravity, whatever, does not mean that any of those laws are prescribed.
So now my point is this, and I think you're kind of bringing up my point again. So that we will have to now study the word, the physics. What is physics? What are the laws of physics? What are the
things
laws
that
of
we
nature?
have identified as constantly true? We have gone out and looked and tested, and we've done science, and the laws of physics, we describe them. Laws that are legal are prescribed. That's the big difference.
Okay, and I understand it. So
I'm not eliminating the possibility that somebody did create the laws of physics, but I do not have a single piece of evidence other than your incredulity, which isn't evidence, that those laws were prescribed. If you can prove it, I'll accept it, but you haven't.
Okay, we'll use your point again, that you will accept that there is a lawgiver of laws, the laws of physics. Now, that
no, I did not say there is a lawgiver. No.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Raymond, I'm so close to just ending because it seems like you don't listen except for keywords, but I'm not going to. I'm going to try to be patient. I do not see any reason to believe that there is a lawgiver for the laws of physics. I see none. I do not eliminate the possibility, because if you can prove to me without just saying, well, how else do you explain it? If you can prove to me the way we prove other things are true, then I would accept it. But at this moment, I see no evidence of it, but you want me to take your incredulity, the things that you don't know and can't conceive of, as evidence, because what else could it be? That was what I said.
Let me try. Okay. So now if there is a possibility that there is a lawgiver to the physics of law, And we know
I don't even know if there's a
that the
possibility,
physics.
Raymond. I don't even know
So
if
you
there
want
is
to
a.
stress
I
that
don't
for the
know.
mark? Okay.
You
Okay,
just
so
said
now
if
let's
we
just say
accept there
what we
is a
do know.
possibility. I don't know that there is a possibility.
Okay, so now let's just go with this then. So we do know that the laws of physics are invisible and unseen. And there's something that's forcing these laws to go into a synchronized order to make everything exist in its individual
No, I don't know
form, in
that.
its individual genius.
Again, you are making
You don't know
assertions
that?
we don't know. I don't know that
This
there is
is
something
common sense.
external. No, it isn't common sense.
You
And
have
by the way,
emotions, right? Can you do
Raymond,
you have emotions, right?
Stop, Raymond. You are not going to win the just talking over me thing. I promise, because I have the magic button. I haven't hit it yet. It is
I'm not
not
trying to,
common
sir.
sense, but even if it was, I would not brag. Common sense is not science. Common sense is what people go with, hey, at my basic level of understanding, just going with what everybody, no matter their lot in life, would understand, this is what makes sense. That's why common sense is often wrong and not something you want to brag about being the basis of your beliefs. But to your point of something is forcing all of these things to do these things, I do not know that. I do not believe that. I don't know that there is any other way the universe could be, which people who want to talk about how come the constants are tuned to the exact numbers we need. I don't know. And I admit I don't know, because I also don't know that it's possible for them to be anything else. Maybe it is. Maybe every kind of universe that can exist also exists. I don't know if that's true. I don't even know if that's possible. And I admit that which I don't know. But you sit here and go, well, my common sense says that something is forcing water to boil at 100 degrees Celsius. Mine says something is forcing gravity to operate in this way relative to mass and location. Something is forcing the speed of light to not go faster or slower than what it goes in a vacuum. I don't know that that's true at all, and I don't know that it could be any other way, that a photon could behave any other way differently. I say I don't know because no one knows. In fact, not only do I say I don't know, I'm going to assert, Raymond, that you don't know. But you will sit there and go, I'm using common sense, which has never cured fucking cancer, to answer questions bigger than the cure for cancer. And that common sense thing of somebody has to be moving the photon and keeping it at that speed, that beats your I don't know, because it's not right to say you do know when you couldn't know.
Now there's somebody, something. See, so now this is what I'm saying. Even in nature, even in the natural realm,
it doesn't matter. Either way, bud or doesn't matter. You tried to get pedantic about the phrasing. Something or somebody, it doesn't matter. Just switch the words out. My rant is the same. I don't know that there is something forcing photons to behave a specific way. I don't know that photons could behave a different way if something changed or not. I do know that photons do sometimes behave differently in different environments. Those are external stimuli that we can actually, stimuli is the wrong word for it, but external factors that we can actually measure. That stuff I know, but this unmeasurable force of seemingly magic that is keeping track of every photon and the speed that they're at and making sure it's consistent, I don't know that something or somebody like that exists.
Well, you know by evidence that the product is operating in that order. And you know that everything that is made by humans, there's a construct that makes that construct and machine flow. So now this means
I know that humans
just like in nature, just like in the material, that there's an order that's designed by a higher entity than the byproduct. So now, just like in the natural, in the physical, there's manipulation going, so where there's a running car, smooth running car, and there's a manipulation going on where there's a smooth running universe. And there's manipulation going on where now
Raymond,
the man can
I could literally use
all
this metaphor is so weak that I could use it to defend humans eating poop. I'm not kidding. I could just go look out at nature and look at what sustains so many creatures. And we see that some of the most resilient life in the world, some of the life in the world that lives almost in a way that they are immortal, they can replicate better than humans. They are some of the most resilient life that exists in the known universe. They consume detritus and feces primarily. And so when you look at that, that is how weak your metaphor is. Just because something does it,
that is a weak metaphor.
Stop your metaphor. I'm talking about your metaphor. Your metaphor is something else is designed, therefore something else which works well. Oh, sorry, something that works well is designed, which by the way, also things that work like shit humans make. Humans make things that work like shit all the time, but something that works well is designed. Therefore, a universe that works well must be designed. And so I turn that into, well, things which live well and most resiliently eat poop. Therefore, for humans to live well and resiliently, they should eat poop. Let them eat poop. Raymond, last thoughts from you, because I'm frankly, I don't know how 22 minutes later we still haven't gotten the same point through to you. But here's your last. So I'll give you. Eric, did you have more back and forth you wanted to do with Raymond first?
Nothing we have already covered. Raymond, you're pointing out. Raymond, you're pointing out what appear to be ordered processes in the universe. You're pointing out constant phenomenon we see, which we humans call laws. And you're basically throwing your hands up and saying, I don't know how else this could have come about other than this was created. That's not an argument. That's not evidence. You're not going to convince us of that.
Okay, so now, and I'm not trying to convince. I'm just trying to give my point of view of what I see, and to the metaphor, I would say, see, now we're human animals, so we have a human nature, and then we have an animal nature, and when these two come together, then now you have the supreme being, apex of the planet. Because no other animal has the ability to reason and use the conscious mind like ours. So
Raymond, you're arbitrarily dividing up. You're arbitrarily dividing up natures between humans and animals. You're claiming that they come together and give us the ability to reason. Other animals can reason. You can watch apes and certain birds and dolphins solve. Raymond. Other animals have these qualities that you're trying to say that are exclusive to us. You're completely spouting falsehoods here.
On our level, you mean to tell me we're not superior?
So now you're arbitrarily dividing up levels of. So Raymond, now you're trying to move the goal. Raymond, you're moving the goalpost. Raymond, I just pointed out that you are trying to arbitrarily divide up humans and animals, and you're setting these criteria. And when I point out that, hey, animals share these qualities as well, now you're moving the goalpost, and now you're going to some arbitrary level of different levels of reasoning. Just because we're the apex of one thing doesn't mean we're divinely created.
I didn't say that. I was responding to his comment.
That's the reasoning you were going at.
Humans eating doodoo. No, I was responding to his comment.
I'm surprised.
Animals eat doodoo.
It's wild.
Doodoo too. And I'm like, we're human animals.
Again, you're talking about apex.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about apex, and I specifically went to creatures that are more resilient than us, that survive better, that replicate better. The idea of saying that yes, in a lot of ways they are. It depends on what depending on your standard. Yes, they are.
Who's the apex? Really, sir?
Here's why I'm hanging. Excuse me. Here's why I'm muting you again. Actually, I'm muting and then hanging up because I answered your question 3 times. You kept repeating it, and I kept answering. Yes, if you pick an somewhat arbitrarily, though I can defend survivability more than you can intelligence, they are greater. They will outlive humanity. There will be these exact species that have basically been locked into their evolutionary place for the last several million years, even through many tragedies that humans couldn't survive. So yes, in a lot of ways, they are greater than us. If you just pick who's the smartest, then as far as we know, for what we call smart, Homo sapiens win just that one, but we don't win almost any other category. We have the least number of gold medals, but we feel very self-important because one of the things that came with evolution of the brain was feelings of self-important. So Raymond, I'm not even going to unmute you because I'm so annoyed of what you just did to show you weren't listening that I'm just here to say, Raymond, for the love of God, do not eat poop. Goodbye. For the love of
his
who?
original question was on the thing here. It says has questions about atheism. He originally asked us basically like, why are we atheists, right? And that's the question you answered. My response to that is, I have not seen sufficient evidence to warrant a belief in a God, and I am unwilling to cling to explanations that are not founded in evidence because either they make me feel better or I just simply can't explain it some other way. That's not the process that I use because I know and I can identify the fallacies behind it, so I'm not going to cling to those. And that's what Raymond repeatedly demonstrated flaws in his reasoning. And when it came to the watchmaker argument, the equivocation fallacy, his argument from incredulity, like one after another. And it's hard to explain exactly what's going on there, especially in one phone call. It's a lot to process, a lot to take in. But Raymond, you almost every step of the way there, you had some issue with your thinking that we were trying to point out to you. And he was very respectful. I mean, he stopped talking occasionally when we were saying hi. I liked him. But yeah, Raymond,
to me means listening. I heard every word he gave. Yeah. He didn't hear most of mine. Yeah.
Wasn't confrontational, at least as far as I can tell. But Raymond, go back, listen to that call. Raymond, go back, listen to that call, and just take a section of it, listen to it, then process it. Then take the next section, listen to it, and process it. Because there were steps along the way where it just kind of got worse and worse because you weren't quite grasping that, hey, you're having some flaws in your thinking here, and before you can go further with what you're trying to get at, you need to first address those.
To everybody watching, again, at 5 o'clock, we are going to hard stop. If you are listening on hold right now and we don't get to your call today, we have lots of great shows this week that you could call into. But we may only have time for one more depending on how it goes here. At 5 o'clock, this show will end, and then we're all headed over to my channel, Jimmy Snow, where I'm doing an episode of the Sometime Show with Dominic Syracuse, where we're basically just going to make fun of how terrible the world is. We talk about the news. It's actually the fucking greatest show on the internet, which everybody who I paid to say so agrees with. Literally, not one person who I paid to say it's the best didn't say it was the best. And so, yeah, join us with that. Other than that, as far as show announcements goes, great shows this week. Watch them. There's a show every day. They're all awesome. Let's go talk to James in New Zealand. James in New Zealand, you are on the line with Eric and Jimmy.
Yeah, that took way too long. What's up?
Not much. How are you? I should have said chicken butt. I'm sorry.
Great. Look, it's all well and dandy that you don't believe in God. That's perfectly fine. You know, there's plenty of people who don't believe in things.
Thanks,
but, you know, the thing that you can't run away from, where do you get your morality from?
Oh, I'm going to run away.
Matt Dillahunty gets triggered by this. That's why he has to side with human secularism. There are people out there who have to create a whole new branch of philosophy to deal with objective morality and try to make it seem like it's a force within nature. Because they can't cope with the fact. No, they are because they realize.
James, hang on.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
Okay, fine. You say you're not joking, though your accent keeps changing. But fine, I'm going to assume that you're not.
My accent isn't changing. This is just how I speak.
Weird, because it changed twice. But James, I'm going to assume that this isn't a joke call for the moment, but you're saying ridiculously silly things. It doesn't trigger Matt. It doesn't bother any of us. James,
it does.
So the question. Okay, well, it's not triggering me, and I do the show with Matt. I did it how many times?
You don't know anything about atheism
last year. James, James, are you gonna just keep interrupting? Or are you gonna let me get around to a point?
No, but you interrupted me when I was giving my opening, and
James,
you interrupted me.
I'm the host of the show, and you keep saying stupid shit like Matt Dillahunty is triggered by this and not getting around your shit. All right, so now we're just gonna mute it. I'm not going to let you finish because I'm not going to let you just go on forever with your stupid prefaces and already show that you have no interest in listening, that you are coming to this whole thing with a fart in a wine glass that you just love sniffing. Oh, I'm so fucking brilliant. James, your question is, where do you receive your morality from if God doesn't exist? Which assumes that morality is something one receives. No one on the atheist side who puts any actual significant thought into this is remotely fucked up about it. Because James, I believe you have a moral system, but I don't believe in God. So the answer to where I got mine is the same as where I think you got yours, which is that you, probably in a act of community, hopefully in an act of research, have talked to people and have assessed that you think some standard is worth aspiring to, and then you, hopefully with other people, not just by yourself, hopefully you're not some serial killing psychopath with more fake accents, that you have figured out what things would meet that standard or not. Because the fact of the matter is if I'm correct that the Christian God or whatever God you believe in doesn't exist, you still have a moral system. It doesn't just disappear. The question is how you got it. So whether or not morality is objective or not, whether or not you would say morality is objective because human well-being would have to be what morality is dependent on, and then something either does benefit human well-being, large or individually, or it doesn't, or you say, no, it is still subjective. However, this is the most defensible standard that's going to be accepted by the most people, should be accepted by the most people because it will benefit the most people and will benefit anybody who has yet to enter society, not knowing what they're going to enter society as. It doesn't matter. You haven't demonstrated that morality is something to receive at all. So anyway, let's go with this totally serious call. I'll unmute you now.
No,
I'm shaking. I'm ready to run away.
Not only did you make fun of me and my voice, you muted me while I was talking. You interrupted me.
I did.
You're not being very.
Oh, do you know what I did next?
Cordial,
and then I did that asshole thing where I hung up on you mid-sentence.
You keep.
He fell for it. What an idiot. Yeah, I told you what I was going to do. And all you had to do was listen. You would have known it was coming. And if you had just said nothing, I wouldn't have been able to hang up on you mid-sentence. And I would have then kept you on because you listened. I don't give a fucking shit what your opinion is of me or how I run the show or what rights you think you have when you show up. You called in, immediately was a dick to my normal co-host, started making assertions that aren't true, that it triggers him and all this stuff, and then we're mad because I wouldn't let your fake troll ass keep going. And yes, your accent did change. I was not making fun of your actual speaking voice so much as whatever these characters you were playing were. I give a fucking shit, bro, what you think. Eric, what do you think? Should I let him keep going?
Probably not, but whatever.
I wanted that. I'm sorry.
End of the show. I don't care at this point.
It's a good theist call. Like the fucking, I'm going to make this all about my fucking wines and baby. I give a fucking shit.
Just the aggression to start off with this and this and this, and then talking about how Matt responds to it. When Matt's not here, you're talking, as far as I know, James never talked to me before, didn't ask me about my opinion about it. He wanted to bitch about somebody else's opinion. It's like, talk to who you're talking to.
This guy is truly our biggest fan. Those people who hate you that much that you're constantly on their mind, those are your biggest fans. People who create hate groups just to talk about how much you suck, literally your biggest fans. These people, it's like the people who fucking like this, where you're just like, you are a joke to me, buddy. Let's try and answer these questions quickly with the remaining calls. We got Cloud in North Carolina. Go ahead, Cloud.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Cloud.
Oh, okay. My question is mostly, I guess Eric will be able to answer this. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and I never really believed it was another thing, but it's just more of, because my family was in it, I waited until I was old enough to really talk specifically to my mom. She's really into it, about it.
Yeah.
And when I did, she stopped talking to me for 2 years. So finally, back in conversations, back to talking with her. And I have a niece. And so my niece, she's 5. And my mom was over, my niece was over, and we were watching a nature documentary. And then she said, I wish they would stop saying evolved about, they were talking about plants. I was like, what do you mean by that? That's the whole thing. And so basically I forgot Jehovah's Witnesses are young Earth creationists. So it's weird to me. But aside from that, it's just we got into an argument. And so she kept trying to make a point to my niece about oh, you shouldn't trust scientists, and that the Bible is the only thing you really need. And I don't know how to really combat that. And I've tried many times. I'm in school right now. I'm in my 3rd year getting my degree in biology, focusing in genetics. And so I've tried so many times to explain to my mom what evolution is, and she refuses to absorb anything that I say to her. And so I looked, I don't know if you've been to the Jehovah's Witness I should try that. I don't know if you've been to the jw.org, their whole thing on evolution, and it's so laughably bad because they even quote Michael Behe as a part of why speciation doesn't occur. And it's just I'm looking through this and I'm realizing if you don't understand what you're reading, it seems plausible, but I don't understand. If you tell them what's wrong, they won't listen. So I wanted to ask you if you've dealt with that, with any family members who may still be in the organization.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so all the family members that I've talked with about that are actually out of the organization now, but they still don't believe. They still believe in a creator God. They don't believe. They'll believe the Earth is old, but they don't think that humans evolved from the other life forms we have on the planet. Back when I was a Jehovah's Witness, we had, at least my particular interpretation, it was a weird mix of old Earth, old animals, but humans were created 6,000 years ago, and humans are the special exception. They were put here on Earth by God, whereas all the animals were already here before that, doing their thing. So there's two people you're trying to address here. One is, your original question is, how do I talk about this with, members that are family that are close to me? The best thing for you to do, I think, is to not get into just a shouting match of claim versus claim, especially when it comes to your niece. You don't want her to learn to simply accept who can shout the loudest, who are going to say things the most confidently. You should be teaching that little girl a process of how do you actually come to the truth? How do you actually look at a claim, analyze the evidence, and come to your own conclusions about it? And then let her self-organize and let her self-determine based on that as she gets older. That's what I've tried to do with individuals like my dad and also my little brother, is I don't just show them the claims. I don't just show them, this is what, scientists express. I actually show them the process behind it. And I show them the evidence, when it comes to human evolution, talking about fusion of human chromosome 2 and endogenous retroviruses and the fossil record, and just the other genetic and other anthropological markers that show that we in fact came from a much longer line of life before us than 6,000 years old. Is probably the best way you can do it. Don't make it, like I said, just don't make it don't make it a shouting match between claims. Make it a discussion about process, and talk to your niece about how you can come to those conclusions based off of a sound process and not just by blind trust in an individual. And as for your mom,
okay,
good luck. Religion's indoctrination is there. You might not be able to get over that. So good luck with you on that.
I only have one thought to add, which is literally just don't start with evolution with your mom. That's not the place. That's not the, as far as trying to win over people who are that deeply indoctrinated for that long and everything. Starting there is not the place to start. Start elsewhere for sure. And probably go learn. I would just work on belief versus non-belief and your reasons for not believing. Don't see if you can get her to agree to the reasons, just to respect your reasons for not believing. I think a lot of times that can often be the case, that can often be the best you can get out of people who are that deeply indoctrinated. Unfortunately, Cloud, I got to ask you for your last words here because we do got to wrap. If you make it very quick, please.
Other than that, You guys answered my question. One random question, super quick. Are you guys going to play Dragon's Dogma 2?
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
RPG on Steam.
All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Vlad.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vlad.
Cool. Morgan, you can go ahead and start running the outro thing there. Thank you, Eric, so much for joining us today. Thank you, everybody who came to watch, to enjoy, to play. A lot of good calls, a lot of fun calls. Now, don't go anywhere unless it doesn't work. But this should automatically take you over to the live stream over on my channel. You should be able to watch. Yeah, it should be automatic. So we're going to stop here. And then moments later, I'm going to try in under a minute to have the other show up. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm going to freeze while Eric says his last words. But I'll be frozen. So goodbye. And Morgan, if you can try and hit end stream as close to exactly 5 o'clock as you can. See you, everybody.